Piper James, great deceiver. You lie to millions, you're why we lose. Piper James, great deceiver. You're living in delusion and you're why we lose. James Lindsay spinning tails, got a fantasy in play, pocketing that cash while he's leading minds astray. Milfs for liberty, he's cashing in the bucks, but his logic's out of whack, man, it's all just muck. Left hates capitalism, he's blind to the facts. Queer theories misunderstood, it's a different attack. Destabilizing norms, breaking down the walls, but James blocks the truth, man, he's lost in the halls. Piper James, great deceiver. Your lies are weak, we're calling out the truth. Piper James, great deceiver. You steal from us, yet you're still deluded. Echo chamber stick, it's a bubble of deceit. While he's pocketing the green, we're exposing the cheat. Leonardi drops the mask with a bang. Where liberation means capital limits, that's the goal. Stop blocking the truth, James, open up your eyes. Our theories misunderstood, capitalism's a pride. Destroying the old norms, shaking up the scene. Face up to reality, stop the serial line. James, great deceiver. Your lies are weak, we're calling out the truth. Piper James, great deceiver. You steal from us, yet you're still deluded. Echo chamber stick, a bullet down. Whiteness, capitalism, it's all intertwined. Queer theory's the lens, but you're way behind. Liberation means capitalism's gone. Jump, chase, the lies will cost us the war, that's the price. No property, no house, no business, no money, no parents, no rights, no life for us all. Socialist reality built on your lies. Piper James, great deceiver. Parents follow your advice, kids pay the price. Piper James, great deceiver. You hold up the curtain to cover the mess you've begun. Piper James, great deceiver. You're lying to millions, you're why we lose. Piper James, great deceiver. You're living in delusion and you're why we lose.
I don't know about you guys, but ever since Sam, who is critically unwoke, wrote that song, I've had it stuck in my head. And I go to sleep. This seriously happens to me. It's happened to me several times. I go to sleep and I've got that stupid Pied Piper. It's not stupid, but like I've got the Pied Piper song stuck in my head and I'm going to sleep. I'm trying to go to sleep and I'm like, Pied Piper, James, great deceiver. It's so good. It's just so good. I am so happy that Sam blessed us with that song and is allowing me to use it, and I just love it. I think it's the best. Guys, welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, where we basically talk about whatever I feel like talking about. We do deep dives into the far left. We talk about the cultural wars. Sometimes we look at the far right and what they're doing. Sometimes I just complain. You know, this is not going to be a complainy type of day, but sometimes I do. Maybe I should make a t-shirt with this. I'm seriously thinking about a whole line of James-related t-shirts. I don't know if people would actually buy those, but it would just make me really laugh. And sometimes amusing myself is like the reason I do most of the things that I do. Anyway, guys, we've got an important show today. Well, actually, I don't know if it's really that important. But this video was brought to my attention. Now, I know a lot of you guys watch this YouTube channel. Can someone teach me how to pronounce this? Can someone like phonetically teach me how to pronounce this? I don't know how to say their name. Heard Karlyn in X Spaces, and here I am going to spend this weekend catching up on her interesting content. Hey, everyone, welcome Shelly. Shelly, are you ready to join my cult? I know you are, Shelly. I know you are. We will welcome you in. It's not a real cult. Don't listen to rumors on the internet. This is not an actual cult. It's just a cult for fun. But welcome, Shelly. We're really glad you're here. Anyway, I know that is what if all this? Is that what it is? What if all this? Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. Someone can teach me how to phonetically pronounce the name of this YouTube channel. I have no idea. But what I do know is just the other day, they released a video called The Anthropology of the Left. And some people DM'd it to me and they said, Karlyn, you should watch this. And I was like, okay. You know, I'm pretty critical of other people talking about the left. And I'll be the first to say that. I have high standards. As in alt history, so what if alt history? Something like that. Okay. I still don't know how to pronounce it. What if altist? What if altist? That's an impossible name for a YouTube channel. But okay, you know, whatever. It's their YouTube channel. They're obviously doing very well. They have many more subscribers than I do. So I'm not gonna make fun of the name. But like, I just don't know how to pronounce that. Anyway, back to business. I have pretty high standards for people doing commentary on the left. I'm hypercritical. That's because for the last almost 4 years, I've spent almost every single day of my life watching far left trainings, listening to DEI trainings, listening to classes they're teaching in college, going undercover at their events. I am intimately familiar with the left in the United States in real life. And oftentimes when it comes to online commentators, they what they're usually doing is doing more of like a right-wing interpretation of what the left is doing, which usually remains unhinged from what the left is actually doing in the real world. Now, I'm not familiar with this YouTube channel. I don't know anything about it. People know, if you've watched my content for a while, you might know that I really don't watch other content creators. I'm hyper focused on the content that I'm doing. So sometimes my audience likes to kind of mess with me and they're like, Karlyn, have you seen someone like this? And I'm like, I have no idea what this is about. So they like to kind of like tease me like that and make me watch things that like everyone else on the internet has watched that I haven't watched, because I just don't watch other content creators as a general rule. So this is kind of my first introduction to this channel. So I have no idea if they're right-leaning, left-leaning, independent. I don't know. But what I do know is most of the time when people talk about the left, they're not talking about the left in the real world. They're talking about some sort of political narrative that's been built around the left that may or may not resemble what I see the left when I analyze it in the real world. And so I like this whole idea, and I know that they also released an Anthropology of the Right, which, if this goes well, it might actually be interesting to watch the Anthropology of the Right thing tomorrow, to be honest. But I kind of like the whole idea, and this is kind of like what I see myself doing when I'm analyzing the left, and I'm analyzing socialists and Marxists in particular. Bot once made a meme of me of Jane Goodall. Bot, do you still have that meme of me as Jane Goodall? Can you like post that on Twitter or something? Like, I know I have it saved somewhere, but like Bot once made this meme of me of like gorillas, and then I'm like, and gorillas represented socialists, and then Jane Goodall was kind of like off just observing the socialists in their natural habitat, and that was me. And that's how I kind of feel about me in the left. Like, a lot of people come across my content and they think I'm a socialist and a communist. They judge me based on the haircut and all that stuff. And that's not true. I was a Democrat for 20 years, but I was never actually like super far left. I was more just kind of like, I was a useful idiot Democrat. I wasn't really paying attention all that much. And, you know, I just kind of went along with things until I realized that my entire party had lied to me my entire life. And then I woke up in 2020 and left the left, and I kind of became a libertarian, and now I'm kind of a fascist because I think the libertarians aren't actually going to do anything productive to fix anything. Anyway, I have had a glorious journey from being a know-nothing Democrat to being kind of like a far-right dissident, which has been interesting in and of itself. But like, how I think about the left when I'm analyzing them is I do view it as a form of qualitative analysis. I do have a PhD. My dissertation was a qualitative dissertation. What that means is I didn't hand out a survey. I did not do a quantitative dissertation. What I did when I was doing my dissertation was I interviewed a whole bunch of people, And then I did a thematic analysis on the themes that were showing up over and over and over again. And that's what you do when you're doing a qualitative research. Qualitative research is actually really hard. It's much more time consuming. It's like when you're doing real qualitative analysis, it is insane. It took me literally years to do this. It is insane the amount of work that has to go into a qualitative analysis. But when I'm analyzing the left, I think about it in the same way. So I'm trying to observe the left from a detached perspective. I am not emotionally invested in what the left is saying or doing. I'm observing what they're doing, and I'm commenting and saying, here is what it is. Here is what they're saying. Here are the definitions they're using of words. Here is how they see the world. Sometimes people mistake that because they think I'm advancing a personal position. I'm not advancing a personal position at all. I kind of feel like it's like you're at the zoo, right? And I feel like the left is in this giant bubble that I'm looking in at the zoo, and I'm just sitting outside the bubble watching it, and I'm like writing down everything that I see. So I kind of do, and I look for themes, and then I tell you guys what the themes are, and I show you it and all that stuff. Thank you, Bot. You put it on Twitter. Hang on, let me find this this meme that Bot has, because it's just like, it's so perfect. Hang on, let me show you this. I just got to take a second to get it up here. Guys, please mount the like button if you have not mounted the like button already. Of course, mounting the like button lets YouTube know to actually recommend my content to more people. If you are watching my channel for the first time and you're not yet subscribed, please make sure you're subscribing on whatever platform you're watching on. I'm streaming on YouTube, X, Rumble, and also Kick. So please make sure you're subscribed or following me and all that good stuff. Here is the meme that I was talking about. So this is how I view kind of my work around like the socialist left, is I'm not involved. I'm not emotionally invested. I'm literally just sitting back looking, and oftentimes people think that I am a socialist because I'm able to articulate what their ideas are with a pretty high degree of specificity. Like, I know what the left believes, and I know what they're working on, and I know what they're doing, but I'm not a socialist. I'm actually kind of like as far away from socialism as you can possibly get. Hang on. So this video was recommended to me, and I thought we could watch it and I could critique it. And if anyone is a big fan of this YouTube channel, again, I don't mean any offense, but I do have a very high bar that I hold people to when they're talking about the left. And I really hope this video turns out to be good. I hope that this is actually like a really good anthropological analysis of the left, because I think it would be really interesting to see it from this person's like perspective, to see how they interpret it. So I think this is just going to be like kind of a fun little activity. No stress, no drama. Okay, we're going to get into a little bit of drama, but not around the video. Haha, Shelly is already understanding our sense of humor. Shelly says, don't let Diddy hear you say mount. Well, Shelly, if you don't feel like mounting the like button, you could be a little bit more gentle with the like button. You could give the like button a high five. You could give the like button a kiss on the cheek. You could shake the like button's hand. You could give the like button a slap on the ass. If you want to do something more dirty to the like button, like all those things that Diddy is now in jail for, I guess you can do that. But unlike the people that Diddy was doing those things to, the like button consents. The like button consents to all advances. So, yep, Bot pegs the like button. It's true. It's true. You can colonize the like button. As long as you do something to the like button, I don't really care. But John Morgan pinched the like button on the butt. Exactly. See, this is the spirit of the channel for people who are new. I have a highly sexualized sense of humor, which sometimes gets me into trouble because then people think, like James Lindsay does, that I'm coming on to him when I just have a highly sexualized sense of humor, and everyone needs to settle down and relax and understand that sex is funny and we should make fun of it because it's funny. Anyway, you did the dirty? Oh my gosh, oh my god, you guys are so dirty. This is only a Tuesday afternoon. What is going on in my chat today? You tortured the like button with Marxist lectures. You tied it to the chair and you made it watch socialism for hours and hours and hours at a time. I love it. I love it. Now we're talking. All right, guys, but before we get into this video, I do have a couple orders of business. The first order of business, and is something that I'm really, really, really excited about, because it's something I've been working on for a minute. For those of you who've been following me, I have this Substack called speaksocialist.substack.com. Now, this Substack is completely separate from my main Substack, which is karlyn.substack.com. It's just my first name, Karlyn.substack.com. And we'll talk about that Substack in a minute. But Speak Socialist is like a special premium Substack where right now I am actually working on building out what originally was one book, but is now turned into like at least 2 books, okay? So I started writing a book tentatively titled How to Speak Socialist about 4 months ago. You can access drafts of the book. You can access me reading audio versions of the book. You can access book notes on the Substack. This is all a premium Substack. So you do have to be a paid subscriber because the paid subscribers to this Substack are actually funding the production of this book. The vision is that I'm writing all of my drafts in real time. And I actually have a lot of drafts written that I haven't released yet because I've had terrible, like, imposter syndrome with this. I've had really bad, like, I won't go into all the details, but the writers will understand. I have had terrible imposter syndrome with this project for like a couple months now, and I'm pushing my way through it. And we're going to start releasing this stuff again because I took a little bit of a break because I was, like, freaking out. You know, people think, like, you know I come across as, like, super confident, but when it comes to my writing, there are actually times when it's like almost a debilitating sense of imposter syndrome. So I'm working through that, and I do have a lot of stuff I'm going to release. But so I'm working on this book project, and one of the things that became really clear to me is that we need to have a comprehensive socialist dictionary. Okay? So the whole goal of this Substack is that I am actually writing a book in real time that you can access in real time. Now, I've written 2 books before this. I wrote a book called Zen Your Work about using mindfulness strategies in the workplace. That was back when I was still a respectable organizational psychologist. It's still a great book. You should totally buy it. It's a great fucking book. I stand by that book completely. I did a good job with that book. I also wrote another book a couple years ago called Actively Unwoke, The Ultimate Guide for Fighting Back Against the Woke Insanity in Your Life. Most of that book still holds up. Some of it doesn't, but that's okay. I wrote it in early 2021. A lot has changed since then, but it's still a respectable book. I appreciate the book. The thing when you do traditional publishing, though, is that you have to wait a minimum of a year between when you finish your manuscript and when the book actually makes it into the market. And usually it's more like 18 months. So example, for when I wrote Actively Unwoke, I finished Actively Unwoke it was it was in June of 2021 that I finished Actively Unwoke. Actively Unwoke was not released until May of 2022. So it was almost a full year after I actually finished writing it that it got released to the market. And of course, so much changes in a year. Like it was a completely different landscape by the time it was released. And that's not to say there wasn't a lot of value in the book, but it was really frustrating to me that my book was hyper relevant when I wrote it, but then almost a full year later, it's like it was still relevant, but it wasn't quite as relevant as it was before, and that's disappointing to me. So I've decided I'm leaving traditional publishing entirely. And the thing of it is self-publishing is easier now than ever. And I'm kind of over this idea that I work really hard writing a book and I finish it and it's awesome. And then I have to wait 12 to 18 months for anyone to actually read that book. I'm just over it. And so what I'm doing with this Substack is you're actually going to see my book drafts in real time. You're going to see things as I come up with them. You might see things that never actually make it into the final book. And so I'm doing all of my draft work in public via the Substack. You have to sign up for a membership for $10 a month or $100 a year. That's what's funding my time doing it. It's kind of like a book advance, except I'm going to the public and I'm making the assumption that people want this type of content. And so you're getting all the access to the drafts in real time as it's happening. And then the goal with this is it will absolutely become a published book that you can actually buy and have a physical copy. It will become a digital book that you can download on a Kindle. It will become an audiobook. I'm actually doing recordings of chapters also in real time as like a podcast that premium subscribers also have access to. So no more fucking waiting. No more going through traditional publishing houses that don't fully understand the vision I have for this. The last time I went through a traditional publishing house and they recorded an audiobook for me, it went so wrong, I cannot even tell you. Though there might be people in the chat who remember this. The original audiobook for Actively Unwoke was read by a leftist that sounded like the Crypt Keeper. She sounded like the fucking Crypt Keeper. She was really angry. She obviously didn't want to be reading the book. And like, I was like, okay, I'm never putting myself through this again. Yeah, the original audio version of Actively Unwoke was read by the fucking Crypt Keeper because the publisher that I worked with didn't understand the vision I had for it and didn't properly vet the person who was actually reading the audiobook. And I was like, and they're like, they assured me, they're like, Karlyn, we're going to get you a professional audiobook reader so you don't have to do that. And I'm like, great. Because I didn't want to read the audiobook. And then I had to strong arm them, and I was like, if you fuckers don't let me record this audiobook myself, then I'm going to record it and release it publicly for free. Choose. I actually got into a fight with this about with my last publisher. I'm like, I'm never doing this again. And then I had to record the entire audiobook in a weekend, and it sucked because I actually had other stuff I needed to do. So it basically took over my entire life where I had to read my entire book to record an audiobook in the weekend because the publisher had fucked up so badly. Anyway, I do still have the original audiobook, by the way. Maybe I play it every now and again. Do you guys want to hear the original audiobook of my first book? Hang on, I do have it. Just for funsies, for people who weren't around back then. Let me see if I have it here. I've got the original one. Let me see. No, not that one. Not that one. Not that. Here.
This is Audible.
This is the original one.
Blackstone presents Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life, by Karlyn Borisenko. This book is read by Elizabeth Hanley.
Leftist. We looked her up.
Dedicated to my
Leftist.
husband, Victor. Without you, I don't think I would have survived any of this.
Crypt Keeper, told you.
Introduction. You are not a racist. The most important thing that you need to understand about the woke in this country is that for their leaders, everything is about power. Everything. And the easiest way to gain power over another human being is to scare them into silence. On the woke political left, they do this by calling everyone who disagrees with them a racist. That's the easiest way to gain power and control over another
Anyway,
human being.
you guys get the idea. I was more than a little perturbed. I was like, I'm never doing this again. Never doing this again. You can hear the venom in her voice. And we actually looked her up too. By the way, she used a fake name when she was actually like reading the book. So her name is not that name. That was a fake name because she didn't want her real name publicly associated with that book. But we figured out what her real name is and we found her Facebook page and it was just full of leftist content. I was so pissed off. Anyway, that's just a nice little backstory for why I will never go through traditional publishing again. And why I'm working on this Substack, speaksocialist.substack.com. Anyway, I've totally buried the lead here. Just like we're reminiscing, and I've completely buried the lead because what I want to announce is just this morning, I've completed the publication of the first draft of a comprehensive socialist dictionary. Now, this is something that I was actually going to wait to write until I was further along in the original book that I'm working on, and we're still going to be doing that original book. But I always had this in the back of my mind that I was going to publish a standalone socialist dictionary as like an addendum, but it's become very, very clear to me that we need this now. And so what I did is I published the first draft of this, and I'm going to be looking for feedback from you guys. That's one of the fun things about this Substack is like you guys can actively give me feedback about the book as I'm writing it. So you guys are going to be able to suggest terms. You guys are going to be able to say, you know, Karlyn, I don't really understand what you're saying here. You guys are basically going to be the editors of the book. And I actually think this works out much better than having a traditional publisher doing the editing because you guys are watching this content with me and you may remember things that maybe I've forgotten and stuff like that. So but this is a really comprehensive dictionary. I worked really hard on this, and this is a dictionary where it has all of the major socialist language that we hear coming up in these leftist trainings over and over and over and over and over again, but I've made the definitions really simple. This is not like James Lindsay's New Discourses Dictionary where you have a 6-page academic paper for every single term. This is like you have a couple of sentences saying, this is what this means. This is what the left means. I cover everything from abolishing capitalism to issues surrounding property ownership to white supremacy, whiteness, all that stuff, to gender, queer theory, abolish the family, to a list of like miscellaneous terms based on how socialists interact with each other. I'm also going to be integrating core concepts into the dictionary. So something like we're not free until everyone is free. I'm putting definitions to those, like common phrases that we hear come up again over and over. I want to write about the whole idea of like what is Queers for Palestine means, why socialists wear masks, stuff like that. There's still some things I need to add to it, but I did want to get this up and I wanted to get it published because this is something that people have really been asking for, okay? So the whole goal of the Socialist Dictionary is the Socialist Dictionary in itself is going to be a standalone book. It's going to be a really quick guide. It's not going to be a big book or anything because I'm making a special effort to have everything be very concise, but it's going to be a standalone book that you can actually purchase as a physical book or as a PDF download or a digital copy or whatever. And if you are a member on the website, speaksocialist.substack.com, I will be sending out a free PDF of the final digital copy of the book to everyone who's a member. So that's going to be one of your perks of membership is you're actually going to be able to you don't actually have to go and purchase it if you don't want to. If you want the physical book, you're going to have to purchase it, or you can just get the PDF, print it out yourself, whatever. So I'm super excited about this. And again, this is a standalone thing. So this is not included in the membership to my main Substack because this is how I'm funding the writing and production of all this stuff. But you can access the first draft now. There's still going to be some edits and some updates, but I am going to be editing it into like a really nice kind of like paperback version of the book that anyone can go and buy on Amazon and things like that. So that's up right now. You can see the first draft over on speaksocialist.substack.com. I'm really excited. Actually, this is a great question. Will this dictionary become a zine? I absolutely believe, yes, actually, yeah. Yes, it could. 100%. This dictionary could contribute to zines. You can take a singular definition. You can take a group of definitions. You can use pretty much you could even create like tons of different zines based on this dictionary. We can create a full zine that is just the dictionary as a zine. That could be like a special edition dictionary. That's actually a really great idea. So I'm really excited about this. I'm really happy about it. I hope you guys will check it out. Again, this is a members only edition right now, so you are getting access to this before anyone in the public does. And this Substack is $10 a month or $100 a year, and it is a complete standalone product. So it's only for members of this particular Substack that get access to this. And I really do appreciate it, guys. And I'm going to be publishing a lot more on this Substack moving forward. I do apologize for the break. I know I do have a lot of people already funding this Substack, so I apologize there hasn't been content, but I'm getting over my internal issues around my questioning myself and doubting myself. And we're just going to start putting it up because this is a project that I think is really important, and I appreciate all the support for it. Now for one other order of business. And this is over on my main Substack, Karlyn, Karlyn, .substack.com. It is time for James Lindsay to put up or shut up. I'm sick of this. I'm really sick of this. James Lindsay, over the last week, has been engaging in yet another smear campaign against me, where he is telling everyone and their mother that I have a personality disorder. He is elevating the ideas of people who have been stalking me literally for years. James Lindsay, even just yesterday, told people that the reason that I'm intellectually criticizing him is because I totally want to fuck him. Now, this has been going on for a long ass time. This is, and I've talked about this before. I have been critical of James for literally years. But for a long time, I just didn't say anything because I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want to create a public problem, all this stuff. And then when James blocked me on Twitter for criticizing Moms for Liberty, I was like, that's it. That's it. I'm not doing this anymore. I am no longer covering for you, asshole, because the thing of it is I have people who come into my audience from James's audience all the time. And one of the things I hear consistently is, Karlyn, I've learned so much more from you in a week than I learned from James over the course of literally years. And LK says, I whined and dined the like button. Thank you for that, LK. I do appreciate it. And I say, yeah, that's because James is engaging in intellectual thought exercises and we're actually watching leftists and socialists in the real world. And then I started making very public intellectual criticisms of James. One of the criticisms I have was that he doesn't explain to people that the number one goal of the woke left is to abolish capitalism, that literally every single thing they do is about abolishing capitalism. We really kind of picked up our criticism of James when he released this book with Logan Lansing about queer theory and the queering of the American child. And just, this book is so cringe. This book is so unhinged from reality. My community over the past couple years has watched more queer Marxist content from real queer Marxists in the real world than any other place on the internet. We've watched more abolish the family content than anyone else on the internet. We understand what queer theory and abolish the family means because we listen to real activists on the left talking about these ideas all the time. It's our favorite topic to cover. And so when James released this book with Logan Lansing where he was like, this has nothing to do with capitalism, we were like, fuck you, James. Why are you lying to people? And so then we started engaging in a pressure campaign against James to try to get him to say the word capitalism. Now, to James's credit, James is saying the word capitalism a lot more now than he has in previous years. And I credit us with that. But because, yes, we read Cynical Theories as a part of book club. It's not as though we are ignorant of James's ideas. We've read James's work. A lot of people in my audience come from James's audience. They've listened to a lot of his work. We know what he's talking about and we know what he's not talking about. So we were engaging in intellectual criticisms of James Lindsay. And as thanks for that, James decided it was better to engage in a smear campaign against me. It started when John Morgan wrote a fan fiction. I didn't write this fan fiction. John Morgan wrote a fan fiction in which James has a minor role. It was based on the movie Midsummer, which we had just watched for movie night, which if you've never seen Midsummer, this fan fiction is not going to make sense. But if you have seen Midsummer, this fan fiction will make sense. Basically, there's a scene in the fan fiction where I am the hero of the fan fiction. James is only a minor bit character. And I was whipping James to demand that he say whiteness means capitalism. Which, again, if you've watched the movie Midsummer, you understand this. If you haven't seen it, it sounds crazy. But this was supposed to be just a funny little thing that happened in my community where John Morgan wrote a fan fiction like it was for my community. It wasn't supposed to be a big deal. James threw a massive fuck off hissy fit about it. And James started telling people that I was having violent sexual fantasies about him because John Morgan wrote a fan fiction that was funny. Look at here. So I have dozens of hours of her ranting about me, including bizarre, violent sexual fantasies. James threatens to post the clips of those. I would welcome him posting the clips of those. James actually has people that are creating accounts just to help James smear me on the internet. James over and over and over again says I have borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, cluster B personality disorder. You can see all the receipts over on the Substack. I have videos of this. I have it all documented. Here's James just yesterday saying that I'm only criticizing him because I totally want him, bro. James has engaged in public struggle sessions to try to demand that publishers remove credit to my work that I rightfully earned. You can see him here. He's saying, he's telling Not the Bee, because Not the Bee put a link to my work, which they actually cited in one of their articles. James says, you got struggled by an abusive narcissist cult. Reach out. We'll talk. Advise removing the link. you don't owe the internet a finder's fee. So he's actively struggle sessioning people to tell them not to mention me in my work. James has actively demanded that his audience block members of my community. So this is Reagan. Reagan's in the chat right now. Reagan is saying, to Marxists, queer is at odds with the normal. When they say normal, they're talking about the system of capitalism that created the gender binary as a social construct. Now, that's just provably true. That's just provably true. Reagan is trying to teach people what the left believes. James retweeted Reagan and said, "This bullshit is tedious. It's also coordinated and bait. Block as enthusiastically as I do when you see it." So we have people in my audience like Reagan who are actively working out there to try to teach people what queer theory is, what queer Marxists say, what they're doing in the real world to try to help people understand this. And James is saying, this is bait and you should block all these people. And I block all of them too. Isn't that nice of him? James has photoshopped evidence against me to make it seem like no one's watching my streams and this is just provably false. James has even spread a rumor that I was trying to channel Hitler. This is one of the most bizarre ones because James right now is trying to convince everyone that I'm a neo-Nazi anti-Semite when I don't actually care if people are Jewish. But one day, about a month ago, I watched a video on my channel on another show that I do of someone else channeling Hitler for an afterlife interview. And James and James's friends actively spread a rumor about me that I was trying to channel Hitler, which was provably false if you actually just looked at the video. All I did was watch someone else's video. So it kind of seems like James is being a little intellectually dishonest. And you know the reason he's being intellectually dishonest is James is actively stealing my work. We know this. We've caught him doing it. And again, you can find all the receipts over in the Substack, and it's right on the homepage right now. We have caught James on multiple occasions, including just last week. James was telling people, I've always told people that they should learn how to speak leftist. Learn how to speak leftist, James? Learn how to speak leftist? Why does that sound familiar to me? Could it be that I've been running a class called How to Speak Socialist for a year now? Could that be? Could it be that I literally have a Substack called How to Speak Socialist where I'm publicly writing another book? 2 books now? But James, just last week we found this, or 2 weeks ago I should say, where James gave a talk to Moms for Liberty where he's actively saying, yeah, for years I've been telling people that you need to learn the language of the left and you need to learn how to speak leftist. It sounds oddly familiar, doesn't it? Oddly familiar. And in all of this, James is actually accusing me of harassing him. Now, I've actually never made character attacks on James beyond calling him a retard when he's acting like a retard. And right now, James is acting like a retard. I'm sorry. All this woke right bullshit that James is trying to push, all these attacks on anyone who dares to interview someone that James Lindsay doesn't approve of, James is acting like a retard. But that is probably the worst character attack that I've made on James. James has said I have a personality disorder. James has said I've had violent sexual fantasies about him. James says I totally want him, bro. James is telling everyone and their mother to block me. He's struggle sessioning people into not citing my work, etc., etc., etc. I think I've earned the right to call James a retard. And the thing of it is in all of this, James has never, not once, actually answered any of the intellectual criticisms that I've made of his work. And it's not as though I haven't made intellectual criticisms. All of our criticisms have been grounded in intellectual criticisms of James's work based on what we see the real far left saying and doing in the real world. And so, I took the time, just in case there's any confusion, to enumerate my current top 4 criticisms of James Lindsay. And again, you can find this over on the Substack. James has not been clear with his audience that the goal of the left is to abolish capitalism. James has not been clear with his audience the goal of queer theory is to abolish the gender binary and the nuclear family. James has not been clear that the left is attacking parental rights because they believe parental rights are a form of private property under capitalism. James has repeatedly called Kamala Harris a communist and a Marxist when she is neither. I have other criticisms as well. Anytime James has called the leftist protesters anti-Semites or insinuated that this is about hating Jews, he's lying to people, just provably. I could probably go on and on and on and on and on in my criticisms of James, but I decided to land on the top 4 criticisms just to give people some focus, to give people an understanding that I'm not making character attacks on James. James is making character attacks on me because James is pissed off that I am making very fair intellectual criticisms of his work based on primary source video evidence that I have been documenting over and over and over and over and over again for years. And that primary source evidence it disrupts the narrative that James is trying to sell. What James Lindsay is doing is he is engaging in cherry picking and confirmation bias to only select the sources that back up the narrative about the left that James is trying to sell to his audience. The sources that I have, which are real leftist activists on the ground right now, the people writing the books, the people doing the conference presentations, the people recruiting other leftists, the people teaching in colleges, the people teaching in high schools, the people who are actually out there pushing every crazy idea in the world today. I have these people on video over and over and over and over and over again, contradicting the narrative that James is selling to his audience, and James refuses to look at it. And the reason that he does not engage in an intellectual discussion with me is because he knows he can't. This is why you see James Lindsay making all these character attacks on me. This is why you see James Lindsay trying to sell this notion that I have a personality disorder that I do not have. Because James Lindsay is not capable of engaging in an intellectual debate around these ideas, and I'm sick of this shit. I'm sick of it. The truth matters. Evidence matters. Reality matters. And these things all matter far more than James Lindsay's ego. And so, the next escalation in our war against James Lindsay is very, very, very simple. It is time for James Lindsay to put up or shut up and debate me and have an intellectual dialogue about what is going on the left. I will bring primary source video evidence to back up every single thing that I say. And James is welcome to bring primary source evidence as well, and then we can compare and contrast, and we can have a debate about what all this means. These are my 3 conditions to the debate. Number 1, I will be allowed to show primary source video evidence and recordings that I have of real leftists and real socialists in the real world. If James wants to bring his own sources, that's fine. I don't really care. Number 2, the debate will be live. I don't want any editing. I want everything to happen live. I want everyone to see it live. I have no problem doing this live. I do this live all the time. Number 3, the debate will be conducted virtually because I don't want to have to go and travel somewhere to talk to James, especially when most of my evidence is going to be primary source video evidence. So I need access to the internet. I need access to my computer. I need access to all of the thousands of clips that I have to be able to show that none of this comes from me. None of this is coming from me. It's all coming from the left. And they are very, very clear. So I don't want to have to do this in person. I think that's going to add an unnecessary wrinkle. I want the debate to happen virtually. I have not made any demands about who moderates the debate. I don't really care. I have not made any demands about the platform the debate happens on. I don't really care. As long as I get to show primary source video evidence, the debate is conducted live, and the debate is done virtually, which gives me access to all the resources I need to actually demonstrate my points, then James is welcome to make any other parameter that he wants. I don't care. And so if James Lindsay is intellectually capable of defending his work, then the time has come. I am so sick of these character attacks. I'm so sick of James deflecting. I'm so sick of not being able to actually engage in any sort of dialogue around the mountains of evidence that we have accumulated. And I'm sorry. I think it's pretty clear who is taking this seriously and who is not. Who is actually committed to defeating the left and who is not. Who is committed to educating people about what the left is doing using primary source evidence and who is not. And so that's the challenge. And here's how I see it. James has two choices. He can step up and prove the veracity of his work using primary source evidence and having an intellectual conversation about it, which is something that as a PhD and an academic, he should damn well be capable of doing. I never worked as a faculty member in a university. The most I ever did was adjuncting at a university. I'm not an academic. I'm not a published scholar. I am a real world I operate in the real world using real world primary source evidence. And how it exists right now is I'm engaging in more of an academic and intellectual discussion than James Lindsay is. Because even though I'm not an academic and I've never worked as an academic, I do have a PhD and I have some game in this. So if James is not capable of engaging in intellectual discussion and an intellectual debate, then that says everything we need to know about him. He is the one making character attacks. He is the one making ad hominem attacks. He is the one trying to prevent anyone from seeing the evidence that I have, and there is a reason for it, because the evidence that I have contradicts the narrative that James is trying to sell the public for money. And this is kind of what I think, to be honest. I don't actually have any faith that James is going to do this. But if James doesn't accept this, then we all know what's what. We all will know that James is not engaging in intellectual discussions and engaging with intellectual criticism of his work because he can't. So that is the challenge. And this is the next phase of the war against James Lindsay. We have been doing a pressure campaign against James Lindsay to get him to say the word capitalism more, and finally, he is actually starting to do that. So we have to give him credit for that. Bravo, James. You're finally doing what you should have always been doing in the first place. The next step of our pressure campaign against James is we are going to be demanding that James Lindsay engage in an intellectual debate with me. This is what all of our messaging needs to be around. We are not going to make character attacks on James beyond occasionally calling him a retard when he's behaving like a retard. We are going to go into his replies on Twitter. We're going to be replying to everyone who replies to James on Twitter. We're going to be saying, why isn't James debating Karlyn? Why isn't James debating Karlyn? Why can't James debate Karlyn? We're going to be going into James's chat. We're going to pick a strategic time to, again, disrupt James Lindsay's podcast premieres on his YouTube channel because he really fucking hates that. And we're going to be like, why aren't you debating Karlyn, James? Why aren't you debating Karlyn? Why aren't you debating Karlyn? In fact, someone actually just did that today. I didn't even coordinate this. Someone today went into the podcast premiere that James Lindsay was doing on his channel, and they said, please debate Karlyn Borisenko. I want anyone who is not blocked by James to be going into James's replies, going into James's DMs. James, please debate Karlyn Borisenko. Don't be mean about it. Don't insult him. Just say this, please debate Karlyn Borisenko. Let's try being nice. You can link off to my article if you want to say she's issued you a challenge. She has parameters for it. Here are her grievances. Please debate Karlyn. I want to see everyone going into James's replies. If you can't get into James's replies, then reply to other people who are replying to James. Go onto his podcast, do it there. Go into his comments, do it there. And start demanding very nicely that he put up or shut up and debate me. And I want other people to see this. Because again, I want this to be very, very clear. Who is causing the problems? I am not the one that caused the problems from the beginning. I said from the beginning that I would work with James. James has been the one shitting on me and everything that I've been doing for literally years because he knows my work is better than his. He knows I'm a better teacher than he is. He knows I'm a better analyst than he is. He knows that my audience knows more about the left than his audience does. To compare my audience to James's audience is like comparing a bunch of master's level students to a bunch of toddlers running around after they've had a whole bunch of sugar. That's literally what it is. When people come out of James's audience and they join my audience, they literally know nothing about the left, and that's not their fault. That's James's fault, because James hasn't taught them. They watch my channel for a couple of weeks, and they go, holy shit, I had no idea about any of this. And this doesn't come from me. This doesn't come from anything I make up. This doesn't come from anything I cherry pick. All we do is watch leftist trainings, as many as we possibly can, from a variety of sources, all across the far left, and people can see for themselves. The left is incredibly consistent. They say the same thing across all the different groups. They use words in exactly the same way, and once people see the evidence for themselves, they never go back to James. So, this is the next step in the war against James Lindsay. I never debate people on the internet. It's not as though James Lindsay can come in and say, Karlyn's just a debate bro and she's doing this. I never debate people on the internet. I hate debating people on the internet. I am making an exception because it's time for his bullshit to be exposed, and it's going to get exposed one way or the other. It's going to get exposed because he mans up and actually has a conversation, and I will expose the fact that all of the primary source evidence contradict the story that he's trying to sell about the left, or it will get exposed when he runs away like a little coward with his tail between his legs because he cannot stand up to me and he knows it. Yup. We're surrounding him and we're backing him into a corner, and we're going to see what happens. And I fully expect that there are going to be more character attacks. I fully expect that there are going to be more smear campaigns. But guess what? There's nothing that James Lindsay can really do to hurt me. People have been doing this to me for years. Nothing he says and does matters as long as it's not an intellectual discussion. I am no longer going to engage in this bullshit. So that is the challenge. Bring it, James. I'm waiting, James. I'm ready. I will debate you anytime, anywhere, on any platform, as long as the 3 conditions are met. I get to use primary source video evidence, the debate airs live, and I don't have to travel for it, and we do it virtually. Other than that, anytime, anywhere, it's your move, asshole, and we'll see who mans up and who doesn't. All right. That was kind of a long introduction, but let's actually get into what we're here to watch today, guys. Switching gears now. We are watching this video from Whatifalthist, the Anthropology of the left, and we're going to see how they analyze the left and what we agree with and what we don't. Guys, if you feel like supporting the work I'm doing, please feel free to send in a super chat. I do have a $100 super chat goal today, so if you appreciate what I'm doing, please feel free to send in a $5 super chat, $10 super chat. Help us get to that $100 goal. That actually funds my ability to do streams and stuff like that. I am also working on a supporter goal for my Substack of 100 new supporters this month. If you sign up for the How to Speak Socialist Substack, that will count towards this goal. So if you already have a membership on my main Substack, which is karlyn.substack.com, and you sign up for the How to Speak Socialist Substack to get access to that socialist dictionary, that will count towards this goal. All right? So let's get this party started.
One of my favorite underlying points that I've used about a dozen times on this show is that we know nothing about the things that we know the most about. This paradox exists since you can only
Very
understand
true.
what something is based
Very
upon its
true.
underlying context. Thus, if you exist too close to something, you can't look at it objectively, given you don't have
is
enough
loud.
distance to see it for what it's not. An easy example of this, I think a lot of you would know from your daily lives, is that you can be in a toxic romantic relationship without even realizing it, since you're so close to your partner. This
So
is
true.
very true of anthropology today. That's since human societies are absolutely insane across the world and history. The more you look at how we humans organize ourselves, it's just incredibly fascinating. Between the Aztecs doing millions of human sacrifices to please the sun god, how many Islamic states had princes who were slaves, the West's ability to make godlike technologies, or the Prophet Muhammad showing up and making the biggest empire in history up to that point out of nothing. It's just remarkable that it's all real. Furthermore, our society today is possibly the most absurd society ever in history.
So
On top
true.
of this, there are so many very rapid social changes occurring right now that no one ever talks about. There's so much material to talk about anthropology if we put the slightest amount of effort into it. However, our society has no interest in how societies work. We believe pretty stupid ideas that were never tested, like the blank slate that human nature is all social engineering and is naturally good. Alternately, that all cultures work the same, and men and women are the same as well, and that culture is unimportant. This is so stupid, and people don't even realize how stupid it is. With all of this being said, we never study our own society anthropologically. What I once said to a friend is the reason we don't look for lessons in history is we know that if we found them, that we would be doing it really wrong, and we don't want to be held accountable. However, if we did the slightest amount of digging, we would find fascinating results from studying the anthropology of our culture. This is the first video of a two-part series. The next video that will immediately follow this one is on the anthropology of the right. We will be studying the right and the left as if we were looking at tribal peoples in the Amazon or the Congo.
I'm
In
on
this
board.
video,
This is
looking at the
good.
origins, strengths, weaknesses, and character of the left as a cultural formation. I can promise you the results will surprise you.
Well, we'll see about that.
Unfortunately, mainstream media is dominated by liberal voices while conservative views tend to be suppressed. This makes finding unbiased news tough and
We don't need to watch
liberal
an ad.
sources
We don't need to watch an ad.
of this country.
No ad.
I've worked with ground news for years,
I
and I
actually
can
do like
legitimately
ground news,
say
but no
that they are a
ad.
good service.
No ad.
Part 1. What is left? I want to make it clear, and I think you folks already know this mostly, but I clearly have a dog in this fight. I'm known for being a conservative pundit who has said some negative things about the left in the past.
Okay, so he's a conservative. I want to go back to this. I actually want to dig into Zoomer history at some point.
Already know this mostly,
I was just looking
but
at
I
the other
clearly
places on
have
here.
a dog in this fight. I'm known for being a conservative pundit who has said some negative things about the left in the
Okay.
past. First of all, finding a person without a political axe to grind today is nigh impossible. Even when centrists show up and try to openly be as centrist as physically possible, they get shoehorned in
Shuan
by
Head
the
is not
left
a
and the
centrist.
culture in general into
Shuan
being
Head is
part
a
of the conservative
socialist.
coalition.
Well, wannabe
Studies have found that the demographic breakdown of the population in America is 1/3 conservative, 1/3 leftist, and 1/3 politically inactive. They found in said study the apoliticals weren't principled political centrists, but rather anti-intellectual normie idiots. Secondly, what matters more than the political dog racing is the truth. If something is the truth, it's just the truth. You can stop there. If someone says something true, it doesn't matter what their motivations are or how they reach their conclusion. What matters is that they won the race to the finish line. Being fair isn't 50-50, an ideal our society sometimes pretends to, but we don't commit to. Being fair is...
So generally speaking, I agree with that, but I also think that, and I hope he touches on this at some point, different groups, different social groups within our society have different definitions of words. And so you could say, well, Karlyn, there is one correct definition of the word. Well, no. Because who got to decide on what that correct definition is? Who made you, like, words naturally will evolve as society, like, changes and grows and stuff like that. So I think that it is correct that if someone says something that's true, like it's true regardless of their motive, fine. But you have to be very, very clear about what the definition is that you're using of the words. Because if you're using a different definition of the word of a word than someone you're talking to is, who gets to decide what is the correct definition? Well, okay, whatever's in the dictionary. Well, who controls the dictionary? The dictionary changes all the time. So if there's one subculture that's using a word in one way and there's another subculture that's using a word in another way, they have to make sure they understand explicitly where they agree and where they don't agree. And there is no one, like, final approved arbiter of words. Whoever controls the dictionary, which is usually the left, doesn't get to be the final arbiter of what the definition of the word is. The definition of the word stems based on the intent and how it's used within the different subculture.
Saying the truth for what it is. The fact that we're operating off any other principle in direct opposition to the West's intellectual heritage since the ancient world is a sign that we are a society that the left has already completely changed. We operate under a leftist philosophic worldview in a level where, at this point, even conservatives are working inside the left's logic.
True.
There's a book by Tom Holland called Dominion, and it's about how much Christianity influenced the modern world in every conceivable way you could possibly imagine. I made a previous video on this topic if people are interested. What Holland says is that Christianity has influenced the world so much so that even people who are purposely anti-Christian end up becoming indirectly Christian through taking Christianity's assumptions about the world without even thinking about it.
True.
The irony is that the anti-Christian left does this given the values of the meek being good, equality, progress.
I wouldn't characterize the left as explicitly anti-Christian. There are Christians that exist on the left.
And utopia all stem from Christian thinking. We forget this,
That's a
but go to
conservative
India, China, or the
That's
Roman
not
Empire, and they didn't believe any of that
objective
stuff.
truth.
I'm going to argue here that leftism is what Christianity was to the whole of history is to the modern world. We fundamentally exist in a leftist world today. Every single thing someone says,
True.
the way they see the world, and even how the right acts is all based on leftist philosophy.
Very
There is
true.
basically nothing in our world today that is not leftist. In the same way that Christianity permeated the Western mind so much that you struggle to find anything that's at least not somewhat Christian. I think our world is so colored by leftist assumptions that we are all leftists. One of my friends likes to say, the future is whatever the left says. People can't conceptualize anything except the left's.
Well, that's because, I mean, the future is whatever the left says. Yeah, that's actually true because the right has no vision for what the future is. The right is a completely reactionary movement. So, yeah, it's absolutely true that the left will control the future because the right has no vision for what the future is. So, I mean, like the most powerful people in any society are the ones who are expressing their ideas. Right now, the only ideas that the right has is everything the left says and does is bad. That's it. The left is saying, we want to abolish capitalism. We want universal health care. We want to make public schooling available to everyone. We want to make all resources available to everyone. We want everyone to be loved, and we want everyone to have money, and we want everyone to have this and that. And we want everyone to go to, like, whatever their vision is based on their socialist Marxist utopia. They at least have a sense of what it is. They know what their future looks like. We just watched a whole stream about it on Saturday. James Lindsay wants to say I did a 3.5-hour hate stream about him on Saturday. That's not true. 3 hours of that stream was literally about the future Marxist utopia. So the left has a vision. The left talks about that vision all the time. The right doesn't have a vision. The right can't say, here is where society should be 20 years from now, or 50 years from now, or 100 years from now. All the right does is say, everything the left says and does is bad. That's not a vision. It's not leadership. And that's why the left will dictate the future. He's absolutely right about that. Rottweiler says, correct. Also, words don't have meanings. They have uses. Uses change over time depending on the current cultural and social conventions. Absolutely, Rottweiler. I totally agree with that.
future of progress, social engineering, and equality. The right merely rejects this future, yearning for a past that never really existed, while the left are the only people with a comprehensive direction for tomorrow, even if it's an incredibly delusional view of the future. Let me use myself as an example. I am well known for being a libertarian rightist, which is the exact opposite
not
of
real.
Marxism. However, I see Marx's influence on
There's no such thing as a libertarian rightist. Libertarianism does not exist on the left. The left does not believe in private property ownership. Private property ownership is fundamental to being a libertarian. You are either a libertarian or you are not. There is no such thing as a libertarian conservative. You are either a conservative or you are a libertarian. Libertarians are not conservatives. Conservatives are not libertarians. That's not a real thing.
my ideas a lot. Marx was the first guy to look at the patterns in history to predict the future, which is what I do. Class analysis, something Marx invented, is something I do all the time and is a trademark for me vis-a-vis other intellectuals in the space. Marx talked a lot of the contradictions of the current ideological system and why there was an inevitable revolution that would form around an ideology that he has developed. Guess who predicts that there's going to be a revolution against the ideological contradictions of the current society while proposing a new ideology and a manifesto, even while being...
He thinks the right is going to have a revolution against the left? Bro. That's not going to happen, bro. I'm very sorry. I know that you want to think that that's going to happen because you're obviously a conservative, but the right is not going to have a revolution against the left. That's absurd. The right has no vision for what they want. The right has no institutional power. The right won't even leave their houses. The right don't do anything to organize or to bring people together around a common vision. Like, this is a made-up fantasy. I'm sorry. There is going to be a revolution in this society, and it's going to be the left. What the Civil War is, I haven't talked about this in a while. People talk about, like, the Civil War, you know, left versus right, red versus blue, whatever. That's not what the Civil War is going to be. The right is way too lazy to engage in an actual civil war. The real civil war is going to be the radical revolutionary left against the capitalist U.S. government. That is what the Civil War will be. Because they're already talking about this. They're already planning this. They talk about it openly. They're going to raise the red flag of communism above the White House. They're going to abolish the Constitution. They're going to abolish the Electoral College, abolish the Supreme Court, abolish the Senate, abolish all these things. They're organizing to do it. They have organized cells all over the country to do this. Where is the opposition on the right? There is no organization on the right. There's nothing. There's nothing but complaining and whining on social media. So no, the Civil War is not going to be left versus right. It's not going to be red versus blue. It's not going to be Democrat versus Republican. The Civil War is going to be radical, revolutionary, socialist versus the United States capitalist government. That's what they call the government, the capitalist government. And the left is going to win because the left has spent the last 100 years getting into positions of institutional power. They have all sorts of people that have government jobs. They have all sorts of people in the military. When the real violent revolution happens, and there will be violence, it's going to be quick and it's going to be decisive. And the left is going to win. Mac B says it seems like a cope from him. Yeah, I agree with that, Mac B. Yes, I do. What's one mantra of conservatives? Reject modernity, embrace tradition. The right lives in the past. It has no vision for the future. Yeah. If the right was smart, they'd be trying to figure out some way to utilize AI to create some sort of positive looking vision in which we can use technology, we can use advances to make society better for everyone. If they were smart, they'd be doing that, but they're not going to. Appreciate the super chats, guys. Yeah, I kind of have that same timeline, Kenny. I think it's going to be within about 10 to 15 years. I think the outside that I have is like by 2050 at the latest. It's not 2030. The 2030 thing is a completely different thing. But yeah, I think you're right. And I've laid out my reason for the timeline. I've done videos on it. I've written articles about it. But I have it around 10 to 15 years is what we have left before the violent overthrow of the United States government. Yeah, he thinks it'll happen this year. That's retarded. I'm sorry. That's not hinged into reality. But let's get there. Let's let him talk.
His opposite in many ways.
No, it's not going to happen way sooner. Nope. That is conservative fantasy that shows you guys don't know how change management works. Change management is slow. It's not fast. There's a reason that things have evolved the way they have. This has been a project that has been 100 years in the making. 100 years is a long-ass time. An election has nothing to do with it. A presidential election has nothing to do with it. This is a complete upheaval of our social systems, of our entire culture. It is not going to happen way sooner because nope, you are, this is conservative propaganda. This is not real. This is based on the WEF bullshit that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Please, for the love of God, stop shilling conservative propaganda in my chat. It can't happen that soon. That's not how change management works. That's not how human beings work. They still have work to do. And again, if you want my analysis of this, I've done videos on it. I've laid out an entire timeline. I lay out the entire logic. This is making shit up based on conservative propaganda. We don't do this here.
Marx still has a huge influence on me. Thomas Sowell has made a really fascinating point that's really stuck with me. He said in the modern world that what the left is clear, and whatever is not the left is the right. That the right basically shares no features across its coalition. When you look at the left, you see Marxist-derived ideologies which believe in a unified technocracy based around equality of all people, social engineering used to bring about utopia, wealth redistribution done through the state, the blank slate, among other things. That being said, when you look at the right, you find the Taliban, libertarians, Nazis, monarchists, Confucians, neocons, militarists, religious fundamentalists, and boomer cons, which are all shoved into the same box. These people really share nothing except support for some sense of tradition and opposition to the left's worldview. Mind you, in fighting against the left, they often develop similarities, as I said before, including some preferring to an older social order, even if the left has become the new status quo. What's been going on here is that the left has a shared proposition that they've been trying to conquer the world with for the last 200 years.
True.
Meanwhile, whoever happens to be in that place in that time who fights them, whether in World War II Germany with the Nazis, modern Afghanistan with the Taliban, or modern America with the Republicans, are whatever the right is positionally. The last 200 years have been the global battle between the right and the left. You see it as early as the French Revolution, then 1848, the World Wars, communism, and now the culture wars today. The amount of sheer ideological difference between leftism that happened during the French Revolution and modern wokeness is not that big. I've read a couple interesting books which compare the things radicals in the French Revolution said to the modern left, and it's really interesting. Ironically, the Marquis de Sade, who, as we all know, was a really nice guy, spoke about the depersonalization and the alienation that would come about from the sexual revolution, or human life, in a way that seems perfectly in touch with the most hedonic factions of the left today. If you want this explained better, read this text wall.
Excuse me, what? Hang on, we need to actually read this. Hang on, I need to cough. Hang on, one sec. The Marquis de Sade was a French nobleman of or around the time of the French Revolution. He was known for, I don't know what that word is, graping dozens of women and being a horribly abusive person. Interestingly, he was also a philosopher and futurist. His image of the future was one in which people were stripped of any sense of cultural continuity with the world, removed of religion, community, culture, family, and the crashing of sexual roles. Okay, well, yeah, that's true. He supported women's suffrage and thought women should be treated like men. This was based out of some weird sexual humiliation perversion. I feel kind of bad comparing the modern left to the Marquis de Sade. Well, it's a really bad comparison, honestly, since I think he's way more evil. It's like comparing a moderate conservative to Hitler. However, I see in the Marquis the foreshadowing of the most insane factions of the left today. I mean, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. This to me says that he already doesn't understand the left, if I'm honest about it. If I'm being honest, I kind of admire how open de Sade, that's not even a complete sentence, even though he was very evil, being that far out there requires some kind of twisted courage. Okay, so this leads me to believe that he does not actually understand what the left is doing, because he is taking a conservative interpretation of the left and he's saying it's all about sex, it's all about debauchery, and da 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 da. That's not what the left is doing. I'm not saying that's not an outcome of what's going on, but is the sex and debauchery the thing that's motivating them? No. No, that is a conservative interpretation of what the left is doing based on an inevitable consequence of the strategies that they're implementing, but it's not the reason that they're doing it.
Factions of the left today. If you want this explained better, read this text wall. The best book on this topic, although one that's admittedly difficult to read, is Fire in the Minds of Men by Billington. I'm going to reference it a lot for this video. It's a book on the 19th century origins of the modern left. He talks about how French thinkers in the 1820s like Saint-Simon.
This is my problem with academics. This right here. They find one book that's talking about like the 17th century or some such shit. And they're like, this explains everything we need to know about the modern left, is what was going on in the 17th and 18th century. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I'm sorry. That's just not the way that human beings work. Just because something happened hundreds of years ago does not tell you emphatically that that thing was hugely influential in what is going on in the world today. You need to show me what is going on in the world today and illustrate how that leads back to something that happened hundreds of years ago. He's already making these overarching connections just like James Lindsay does. Exactly. It's like, if you want to know what's going on in the real world today, go look at what they're saying in the real world today. And you know, and it is completely possible there might be, like, it absolutely, like, what is going on in the world today might be the result of a historical development that started hundreds of years ago. But actually show that. How did X lead to Y? What assumptions are you making that make you believe that X happening 200 years ago leads to Y happening today? How did that arc happen? Who carried these ideas through? How do you know the groups today are doing what they're doing because something happened 200 years ago? They make all these assumptions and they jump over parts of, like, the thought process, and they make assumptions to fill the gaps. Hey, thanks for the super sticker, Kimberly. I appreciate it.
Talk about how we needed mass migration and liberation from the third world, which would cause a war of liberation to free the first world. He wanted to create a priesthood of the science, which would create secular religion to honor the discoveries of science. He wanted to create a new man, interchangeable from old cultural ties, and to have complete androgeneity.
How are you using the word, like, why are you asking this? This isn't a term that, like, the left uses with any frequency. What do you mean? Like, can you give me more information, Fluffy Cow?
Between the sexes, pushing for something that sounds like trans. Every single thing in the modern left can be found in French thinkers 200 years ago, like Saint-Simon. In my opinion, he's one of the most underrated historical figures. Between the 30 Years' War and the French Revolution, Western civilization was stuck in a conflict between Britain or France, that being underlined by capitalism versus mercantilism. From the Black Death until the 30 Years' War, it was Protestants versus Catholics. Before then, from the collapse of the Frankish Empire until the Black Death, the largest ideological struggle inside Western civilization was between the Catholic Church and secular authorities like the Holy Roman Emperor. These kinds of divides are completely normal over history, with other examples being the Optimates versus the Populares in the fall of the Roman Republic, or the Armagnacs and Burgundians in 14th century France.
I don't begrudge people who get really into history like this. This is kind of like they get really into history in the way that I get really into like what the left is doing today, and you get a little bit wonky about it and you get a little ridiculous in terms of like you're able to pinpoint all these things and you know all this stuff that other people don't know. And I don't begrudge people that at all. However, people who get really wonky about history also tend to be intellectually detached from what is going on in the real world. What that means is they get so into understanding these perspectives about history and reading books about history and analyzing like the evolution of different things that they forget that there are actually real people doing things in the real world right now, and that you can find this information, but they're not interested in what's going on in the real world right now. They're interested in history. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but we need to be clear, like, there is a place for talking about the historical development of things, and then there's a place for saying, okay, but we have problems that are going on right now. Can we talk about those problems? And then they go into some tryst about, well, this comes from 17th century France and this little known philosopher over here. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Great. What are the activists saying and doing in the real world right now? Oh no, the Holocaust is trending on X. Oh no, what did Nick Fuentes say? Let me see. The workers are alienated from their labor. That's just not something I hear the left say a lot. I would not say alienation is a Marxist term. I don't hear them say it a lot. They're alienated from their labor. I mean, I could see them saying they're oppressed by their labor. So what it probably means, Fluffy Cow Respecter, is they're alienated or separated from the profits of their labor. Because the general argument of the left is like, workers are oppressed and their only job is to produce profit for the owners, and they don't get to enjoy that profit. That would be my guess.
In each case, these ideological battles overlay some ethnic, regional, or class interest where ideology rationalizes it. As I frequently say, people just like killing each other and make up reasons to do it. Over the course of this video, we will explain what the underlying social, ethnic, economic, and psychological drives behind the modern left are. I think a lot of you guys will find this...
Yeah, but this is different. Again, this is the difference between theory and reality. So just because a term exists in Marxist theory does not mean that real leftists are using it today in reality. And this is the distinction that I always make. Just because someone wrote something in a paper that was published 200 years ago does not mean that's what real leftists are teaching in the real world today. If you want to know what real leftists are teaching in the real world today, you go look and watch what real leftists are teaching in the real world today. I don't hear them use the term, I cannot remember a time when I've heard them use the term alienation. Not in their real-world teachings. Maybe in their philosophy papers, but not when they're actually teaching people.
Application of anthropological techniques normally used on other cultures, when applied to the modern world, fun. It's actually pretty easy to put all the pieces together,
and so,
but y'all have to...
And so the point of that is, it's kind of like, yeah, sure, okay, they wrote about it 100 years ago, they used that term in their philosophy papers all the time, but if that word, if that concept is not currently being taught to people today, does it make a fucking difference? If the real activists in the real world are not using that term today, does it make a difference that it appeared in philosophy papers 50 or 100 years ago? I would argue no, it doesn't. We should only be caring about if our goal is to solve real world problems, then the only thing that we should care about is what is going on in the real world today. If we get too lost in the philosophy, we become fundamentally disconnected from what is actually happening in the real world.
Wait a second. What I will say is that there are two lefts over history. There is the Western left and the Eastern left. This is an idea I've developed myself when I looked at the history of leftism. I think Western left is the line from Rousseau through the French Revolution, then into Bohemian culture, Weimar, the 1960s, and now with wokeness.
No, this is not right. This isn't right. No. This is not right. I'm sorry. This is completely wrong. This is completely fucking wrong. To say that Western leftism isn't inspired by Marx and Stalin? Bro. The executive chairman of the American Communist Party is a Stalinist. Self-professed. That's Jackson Hinkle's party. Now, you can argue, and I would argue, that they're not really relevant right now on the left, but the fact of the matter is, they are Stalin. Where the fuck is Lenin? Where is Lenin on this? Does he have Lenin categorized as some other thing? Is he saying that Lenin is categorized under Marx? Because the majority of communist parties in the United States right now are Leninists. They're Bolsheviks. And they also don't like Stalin, by the way, but because Stalinists and Leninists are not the same thing. Yeah, this is completely wrong. I'm sorry. There is no universe in which this is all made up. This is a conservative interpretation of what the left is doing. This Western leftism thing, completely made up. And again, like, it's really disappointing to me when conservatives on YouTube do this shit, because it's like, they're fundamentally misinforming their audience because they insist on a conservative interpretation. But then he's presenting it as though it's true. Why didn't he fact check it? Why didn't he engage in a check of his own confirmation bias? Why is this even on the internet? It is so easy to disprove, it's not even funny. He's setting himself up as an expert to try to do an anthropological interpretation or observations around the left, and he's completely just making shit up that are not based in any real-world leftist activities. So that's on him. He has a YouTube channel with over 600,000 fucking subscribers. He needs to behave responsibly. That is on him. These lists just, we have entered the land of retardia, folks. We have entered the land of right-wing retardia. I was afraid this was going to happen. I hoped it wouldn't, but I was afraid it would. Here we go. Well, then he shouldn't be presenting it as an anthropological analysis of the left, because a conservative making shit up is not an anthropological analysis of the left. Everyone knows the difference, right? There's conservatives making shit up, and then there's actual detached analysis of the left. He started this whole video saying, I am just observing the left. I am like looking at them like we are observing animals at the zoo or tribes in the jungle. I'm not making value judgments. I'm not imposing my conservative ideals. And then, boom! Made up list of conservative bullshit based on his conservative bias that he has not done a confirmation bias check on, that he has not fact checked, that is not connected to anything that's happening on the real world left. And people are just like, you know, this is just a thought experiment. No, he's not presenting it like that. That's not what this video is. Then he shouldn't be saying this is an anthropological analysis of the left. This is literally making shit up. Did I have a super chat that I missed? I just want to make sure. No, I got it. Hang on, we just got a super chat from Rottweiler. Furthermore, Rousseau was an influence for Hegel, Fuhrer, I don't know how to say that word, and Marx. Separating Marx from Western leftism is asinine. He doesn't know the... Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that stuck out to me, Rottweiler. I was like, you're separating Marx from Western leftism? That's the most bizarre take I have ever heard in my life. To separate Marx from Western leftism? The left quotes Marx all the fucking time. The left does entire Marxist study groups. When I was at the Socialism 2023 conference in their massive bookstore, they had a whole wall of books from Marx. They had a whole fucking Marx section. To say that Western leftism is not heavily influenced by Marx is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life. And honestly, that impugns the entire rest of this video for me. Like, there is nothing that I will not be critical of in this video now, because that one thing is so stupid that I can't see past it. I'm like, this person has no intellectual credibility to me. Sorry.
Eastern leftism starts with Karl Marx, then Lenin, Stalin, and Mao,
Oh,
and now with the
I'm
Chinese.
sorry. So he didn't put Lenin on the list. Why isn't Lenin on the list? That seems to be like a pretty big fucking oversight. But he's saying Lenin doesn't influence Western leftism? Bro. The Revolutionary Communist Party of America, which has an organized presence in over 30 U.S. cities, overtly say that they're Leninists. They overtly say it. It's not even hard to find. This is a communist party that has tripled in size in the last year. This is the communist party that was marching in the streets of Philadelphia just a couple weeks ago. They overtly say they're Leninists. And you're telling me that Lenin is on Eastern leftism, even though you left him off the list, and he's not on Western leftism? Come on. There are multiple communist groups in America that consider the Russian Revolution to be the greatest event in the history of humanity. That flat out say they're trying to elicit another Russian Revolution in the United States today. And you're telling me Lenin only influenced Eastern leftism? Bro. This guy has no credibility. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for anyone who likes him, but like, I don't think this guy... This is like when you guys made me watch Tick History and like I tore him apart like without even trying that hard. And everyone was disappointed, and I was like, I'm sorry, but he's obviously and overtly wrong. Like, this is one of those things where I'm like, there is no basis for this in reality, so why are you even talking about it? Well, I don't know that we can watch that now because he's already completely impugned his credibility. I'm sorry, he seems to be one of your favorite YouTubers, but like, this has no credibility. I don't care if he's 21. He has 600,000 subscribers. He is presenting himself as an expert. He is presenting as though he's doing an anthropological analysis of the left that is completely unhinged from what the left is doing in the real world. There's no truth to this. And it's not even one of those things that's difficult to prove. This is easy to prove. This is not even hard. We just saw Emmy O'Brien say the Russian Revolution was the greatest thing ever like less than a week ago. This is informing right now hundreds of thousands of people who now incorrectly believe this shit because their favorite YouTuber said it and he didn't bother to do a basic check of his own confirmation bias. This is the problem. This is why so many people are misinformed about what is happening. This is why the left is winning. Because of shit like this. Anyway, I'm not going to keep yelling, but for fuck's sake.
Communist Party. The Western left is more libertine, feminine,
No.
delusional, anarchic, gay, and green. The Eastern
No,
left is
wrong.
masculine, authoritarian, aggressive,
Wrong,
statist, and direct.
wrong,
I actually think it's useful to study them as
wrong,
completely different movements since
wrong,
they seem to be
so
operating off
wrong.
different trajectories.
So
I've already
wrong.
made a video on the Eastern bloc of
Look,
leftism, that being the
500,000
communism
views.
video.
Probably
I've purposely
complete
tried to
bullshit.
put different content in each video, and so there's lots of stuff I'm leaving out about the Western left, which you should watch that video to know on a deeper basis. Thus, this video will focus on the Western branch, or basically the Western leftists that we see fighting over the culture wars today. Antifa and BIPOC, not Lenin and Deng Xiaoping. The theme with
Not Lenin. Not Lenin. It's just Antifa and black people, guys. That's who's fighting on the left. Antifa and black people, not Leninists. Bro, for fuck's sake, hang on. Are you shitting me? Are you shitting me? I'm going to go to Haymarket Books YouTube channel. I just want to show you guys a couple things. I'm going to go to Haymarket Books' YouTube channel. Haymarket Books is the largest socialist book publisher in the United States. They are the people who run the Socialism Conference in the United States. You want to tell me Leninists don't exist on the left in the West? Huh? Okay, Socialism 2024. These are presentations from the Socialism Conference this past year. Lenin and the politics of rehearsal. This was literally presented live at the Socialism 2024 conference in Chicago 2 fucking weeks ago. Lenin and the politics of rehearsal. 100 years after Lenin's death, his exhortations to learn and think in concrete remain urgent for our movements. One of the most prominent leftist activists in the United States today, Ruth Wilson Gilmore, presented 2 weeks ago saying Lenin is critical for our current movement. What does it mean to approach our politics practice not just as an abstract of rules, but as a collective rehearsal of coming worlds? And how can we perceive, expand, and connect contemporary U.S. experiments rehearsing abolitionist, communist, and anti-imperialist movements around the planet? This was 2 weeks ago. It's not hard to find. Let's just look and see how many times Lenin... Oh, that's not Lenin. That's Lenin spelt incorrectly. This is less than a year ago, Lenin in his time and ours. Let's see. What else do we have? What is the relevance of the Russian Revolution today? Legacy of the Paris Commune. They've got book launches about Lenin. They're talking about Lenin in this video about 21st century socialism. Let's see what they've got on Marx on this YouTube channel. Because he says that Marx is only influential in Eastern leftists. Okay, Marx was right. Marx's critique of the Gotha program, Marx's concept of the alternative to capitalism, Marx. Marxism, I'm in the Anthropocene, degrowth communism. The Jewish question, ooh. That's only 5 minutes long, but I've never listened to that. I'm going to save that till later. Marxism and social movements. They did a whole series about Marxism and historical materialism. This is all out of Chicago. This is just one group. This is all out of Chicago. Let's go to the Revolutionary Communist Party of America. I do want to watch their video on Is Trump a Fascist sometime. I do want to go back and watch this. Maybe we'll do this tomorrow. Look at this. 4 months ago. Why wear Leninists? You're going to tell me that Lenin doesn't influence Western leftists? This is the Revolutionary Communist Party of America. They have over 30 organized presences in U.S. cities around this country. They heavily recruit on college campuses. They heavily recruit in unions. They're the people that have the Karl Marx sticker where it's pointing at you and it says, "Are you a communist?" It has a QR code on it. Anytime you see those stickers anywhere, and you can catch these things on social media all the time, that's these people. These people were protesting outside the DNC. If you saw Vivek Ramaswamy talking to communists outside the DNC, this is the group he was talking to on the homepage of their YouTube channel. Why, where, Leninists. I'm not asking for the sun, the moon, and the stars, guys. I'm really not. I am not asking for the sun, the moon, and the stars when it comes to YouTubers. I really feel like I'm not. All I'm asking for is a basic goddamn fact check, a basic check of your own confirmation bias before you wrongly inform hundreds of thousands or millions of people about what is going on. This is not too high of a bar. If you are positioning yourself as an expert in the space, it is your responsibility to do a basic fucking fact check before you put information out there. Otherwise, you are wrongly informing people, and they are going to walk around with that incorrect notion in their head for God knows how long. And once people learn something that is wrong, it is near fucking impossible to unteach them of that fact. It's infuriating. It is goddamn infuriating. These people, and I don't care that he's only 21 years old, this is still his responsibility. He's obviously very well read. He obviously knows how to research. He should know better. This is why the left will win and we will lose. Because people on our own fucking side are wrongly informing people of what is going on in the world. This is why conservatives are paving the way to Marxism in America. All right, I'm going to stop yelling about this now. I promise.
Which we subtly teased out earlier, that the left can determine what is socially acceptable today should be an important tell, which we'll gradually answer later. I think this is a really fascinating topic to cover, given what the left shows as its face and what's really happening under the hood are so different. The irony, and this is a feature, not a bug, is that what the left...
God damn, I can't believe I have to spend another 40 minutes watching this video. What a goddamn waste of time. Dragon Ball says, I'm reading my syllabus for the Midwestern Marx class I took. Oh, you took a Midwest. I forgot about that. Marx, and yeah. So Midwestern Marx. Again, you can find them on YouTube. What's on the Midwestern Marx class syllabus? Marx, Marx and Engels, Marx, Lenin, Foster, Stalin. But no, according to this guy, this conservative on YouTube, none of these people actually influence Western socialists, Western leftists. Nope, nothing to see here. That's all Eastern leftists, guys. You don't have to worry about it here. Bullshit. Thank you, Dragon Balls. Appreciate it.
Says they are, and the truth are so different as to basically be opposites. Over the course of this video, we will look at the demographics, philosophy, and psychology of the left. Part 2, demographics. One of the tweets of mine that went the most viral, which got over 1 million views, was when I said, I don't think the Jews are to blame for the left. Rather, I blame the Jews and women, Calvinists, and the bureaucracy. I think for each of these, they share some of the blame. As we will get into later, I'm going to throw in another group who were decisive to the formation of the left, the French. Although the French importance has shrunk over time, historically we have the illusion of knowing what the story is. The problem of writing about the present versus writing about the past is that we knew what happens afterwards. When you read enough about a particular era of history, you realize that people at the time were worried about a million different trajectories that just didn't happen. The feared Russian conquest of Europe in the mid-19th century, the French invasion of England, or a communist revolution in America, all of which serious people worried about. However, However, we can know what did or didn't happen in the past. For example, when I talk about historic conflicts, I can often distill it into a single variable. The parliamentarians versus the royalists in the English Civil War were bourgeoisie capitalists against the old gentry and nobility. The whites versus the red in the Russian Civil War was the Russian heartland around Moscow versus the fringes. The American Civil War.
Remember 3 years ago when we were watching teacher trainings, we found Red May by following breadcrumbs. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. We worked our way back slowly. We were watching DEI stuff. We were watching classes. We were watching teacher trainings. And we slowly, over the course of time, worked our way back to the origin of all these things based on following a series of breadcrumbs in which we could connect real leftist activists with what is going on in schools. They don't do this. And I just want to say, like, are you guys a little bit more appreciative of my techniques now? I'm just saying. I go out of my way to make sure I have evidence for everything that I say, and there's a reason for it. Hopefully some monetary compensation will alleviate the pain. Thank you, average person. Yeah, can everyone send me in super chats to give me motivation to continue watching this video? Like, okay, let me put it this way. I don't know how long I'm going to make it through this video if people don't send in super chats. I really don't. I might just quit the whole thing. Because I'm already so pissed off. I'm like, this is a giant fucking waste of my time. I could go be doing something else right now. So if people want, like, here is the thing. If people want to see me continue to watch this and continue to comment on it, send in a $5 super chat, $10 super chat. Help me make progress towards my super chat goal. I appreciate it. Go sign up for my Speak Socialist Substack. I'll take that as well. Go access the Socialist dictionary that I meticulously created after years of fucking research, watching primary source evidence. Go access that. Here, I'll send you the link. Go sign up for the dictionary.
Was the slave-owning South versus the industrial North. There are at least 4 separate correlative trends that you can use to predict the demographics of the left. These are 4 separate trends that stack up almost perfectly onto the other, in America at least. I know things are kind of different in Europe. Those being cities versus countryside, managerial versus merchant class, low agency versus high agency, and female versus male. To explain all of these, if you look at a map of red states versus blue states, it's very clearly an urban versus rural map. The blue states are the states with the huge international cities. Places like New York City, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, or Chicago. Chicago is a great example of this, in that in almost all cases, the rural areas of blue states, like downstate Illinois, upstate New York, or the Central Valley of California, are conservative. Meanwhile, cities in red states like Austin, Dallas, Kansas City, or Atlanta are blue. On a statistical basis, the strongest correlation by a significant margin for
Yeah, thank you, MacB, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Why is there no primary source evidence? Why? Why do people have such a goddamn aversion to using primary source evidence? Why? Oh, because then they would have to challenge their own biases. That's why.
Whether someone is conservative or progressive, is that conservatives would rather live outside a town to have a larger house with more land, and leftists would rather live closer to the action and have a smaller home. This is an almost perfect...
Thanks, Ken. Listen, you guys have nothing to be sorry for, honestly. I appreciate the super chat.
Urban versus rural proxy. The beautiful thing about the world is that there are multiple layers of causation always happening at once. The anthropological nature of cities establishes incentives in which you naturally see something like leftism show up. An important fact to keep in mind is that only since the Industrial Revolution do we see majority urban populations.
Hey, thanks,
I talk about this theme more so in my video on population collapse, but cities are anthropologically different in that, for example, ever since the ancient world, cities have always been incapable of demographically sustaining themselves without countrysides. On top of this, cities have always historically been atheist or agnostic and have been places of
cities have always been atheist or agnostic. Cities have always been atheist or agnostic. I'm sorry, what? Does that even make sense? How do you come up with that? The founders of the United States were fucking Christians, for the most part. And most of them came from cities. The American Revolution started in Boston. In a fucking church. Oh my God. Yeah, the sources, I made it up, bro. Exactly. Payton says, look at the primary source evidence around Churchill. It's all excused in the name of greater good. So primary source. Well, okay, so yeah, I mean, like, but at least you're using primary. Yeah, at least you're using primary source evidence. But like with Churchill, the primary source evidence is like cherry picked to the stuff that's convenient. But at least it's primary source evidence. At least you're then talking on this. You're on the same page, right? You're not just making shit up. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Some of the biggest fucking churches are in cities. Just listen to that again, just to make sure we heard it correctly.
Have always historically been atheist or agnostic and have been places of creativity and also moral degeneracy. This is since...
So not only have cities always been atheist and agnostic, cities are always places of moral degeneracy. Bro. Christianity took root in the urban areas of the Roman Empire.
Inside cities, you can't use social ties to maintain moral standards. Humans evolved to live in small communities in which everyone knew everyone else. Cities remove that, thus allowing them to be creative systems which can produce lots of cool stuff, but at the expense of social stability. Keep in mind that there were certain people who had value systems roughly similar to the modern left in the pre-industrial world, but they tended to be cosmopolitan aristocrats. People like some...
Remind me, just like, I mean, I know this is like just maybe a fairly obvious example. The United Kingdom is based on a monarchy. Remind me of where the coronation of the king takes place, or the queen, but in this case now king. Can someone remind me of where specifically in London the coronation of the king takes place? In a fucking church. Westminster Abbey. But no, cities have always been atheist and agnostic. Okay, we need to move on from this point now. It's just like, again, it's like when it's so easy to say, here are all these examples that contradict the points that you're making, and we're not even trying. We're just doing this off the top of our heads. It's like, bro, you may be 21. Be fucking better. Be fucking better than you're being right now.
Italian Renaissance humanist thinkers, Tolstoy, Marquis de Sade, or some ancient Greek thinkers like Epicurus. The reason there aren't that many parallels to the left in pre-industrial societies, in which almost every society before the Industrial Revolution is in the authoritarian right box of the political compass, is that all pre-industrial societies were rural. You can also map this correlation in that France was the first country in Europe which urbanized, building its entire elite around Paris due to the centralized monarchy. Thus, France was the first country in Europe to experience leftism or agnosticism, that being the French Revolution. After this, you can correlate the rise of socialism with urbanization, as you can see from this text wall.
Oh my
the other
God.
correlations make
Wait.
sense from looking at the
As you can see from this text wall, okay. Urbanization, population growth, and the Industrial Revolution occurred on a west to east gradient in Europe. There's a cool book called The Human Tide by Paul Morland, which covers this. It started around 1800 in Britain or France, which saw the French and Industrial Revolutions. 50 years later, Central Europe had a population boom, which caused the Revolution of 1848. Eastern Europe was around World War I, causing that and the Russian Revolution. I don't agree with his analysis of the political evolution of this. I just don't agree with it.
As you can see from this text wall. The other correlations make sense from looking at the urban-rural split. This is why the founding fathers of the left were all French. I am going to keep recommending the book Fire in the Minds of Men by Billington, but
the founding fathers of the left were all French? The founding fathers of the left...
all French.
The founding fathers of the left were all French. In what fucking universe? Oh, remember, Marx isn't influential in Western leftism, according to this kid. Marx is only influential in Eastern leftism. Now, the founding fathers of the left did have something in common. It wasn't that they were all French. Does anyone want to take a guess in the chat about what the founding fathers of the left have in common? And in the meantime, I'm going to just thank Guardianship over on Rumble. I apologize, I didn't see your Rumble rants, bro, but I did get them. Thank you. Guardianship over on Rumble has said, I swear it's like we're going backwards in history instead of forwards with some of these fools on the internet. I agree. He is a map illiterate, history illiterate, socialism illiterate. You can't fix stupid. Guardianship, thank you for those Rumble rants. I do appreciate it. Let me add that to the total. I'm going to have to do some math here. So guys, what do the founding fathers of the left actually all have in common? Does anyone have any ideas? Maybe not all, but like a lot of them. What do the founding fathers of the left actually have in common? Well, yeah, they were all Marxists. What else? What else do they have in common? I think you should just say it. Just do it. Just do it. Give in to the urge. Yup. There is far more correlation with the founding fathers of the left, not all of them, but a lot of them, being Jewish than it is with the founding fathers of the left being French. Many of them were of Jewish descent. Now, I'm not making a commentary on all Jewish people. I'm not saying that all Jewish people are responsible for leftism. I'm not suggesting that at all. We are talking about a very specific group of people who happen to be Jewish, mostly. So we're not inferring that this applies to all Jewish people. I'm just saying that if this guy can assert that most of the founding fathers of the left were French, which there is no basis for at all, then I feel like, yeah, we love our Jewish homies. We're not putting that evil on them. I'm just correctly pointing out that most of them were Jewish.
I am going to keep recommending the book Fire in the Minds of Men by Billington, but the entire first generation of leftist thinkers were all French. An interesting side note here is that modern socialism came out of various sub-factions in the French Revolution. Inside the chaotic maelstrom that was leftist French revolutionary politics, the different political factions were literally made up of people who went to different cafes. Thus, you could map different factions of radicals based on the streets that the cafes they went to were. France had a 50-year demographic lead on the rest of Europe, which is a trend that goes back to the Middle Ages.
I don't recall, I agree with you, Nick. I don't recall ever seeing the left talk about the French Revolution. Let me just check. Let me go to Haymarket Books. Hang on. Let me go to Haymarket Books. Let's see. Let's see. Now, this isn't the end all be all. This is just a quick this is a quick bias check. It's not an end all be all. But let's go to Haymarket Books YouTube channel. Just look up French. Oh, so okay, so we have a 5-minute video on the French Revolution and historical materialism. We should probably watch that. We're gonna, unlike this guy, we're gonna disrupt our own confirmation bias. State, society, revolution in 18th century France. Okay, we can look at that. Marx in Paris. How interesting. Marx in Paris. Franz Fanon. We actually should probably watch this. This is actually something we should watch. So we should watch that. He's going to talk about decolonization. So it looks like there is some stuff on that. So we'll go ahead and disrupt our own confirmation bias and say just because we haven't watched stuff about this yet doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And yet still, it does seem that, you know, he's overlooking the influence of Marx and Lenin rather aggressively, and apparently for no good reason. Thank you, Nick. We can, but this is just it. This is, hang on. But, oh shit. Can someone tell me what timestamp I was at? Sorry, I accidentally clicked on the timeline when I went to, oh, you're muted anyway. Okay, can someone tell me what timestamp I just left off at? Sorry about that. We'll go back. But, yeah, so I don't know where that was though. Hang on. It's about there. It's about here. Okay, I got it. Never mind. Yeah, we're not going to watch it today, but we'll watch it at some point. Thanks for being a member of the channel, Tayton. But I want to just acknowledge this. Like, listen, there's no shame in admitting you're wrong about something. There's really not. We're human beings. We can't know everything all the time. The point is not, and James Lindsay has this problem too. The point is not, do you get everything right all the time? It's, do you make an effort to disrupt your own bias? Do you make an effort to seek out points of view that contradict what you think is true purely to keep yourself intellectually honest? And when new evidence is presented, do you then go back and say, you know what, maybe I didn't get that one correct and I've evolved my perspective and I've evolved my point of view because I can admit that I didn't have access to things I didn't know? And even then, French intellectuals were postmodernists, Foucault and Derrida, and the postmodern theory started off as a critique of the failures of Marx. Thanks, Rottweiler. Appreciate it. Yeah, Laquitius makes a great point. If you were never wrong about anything, you wouldn't ever be able to unlearn anything. Or you would be unable to learn. Exactly.
In the rest of Europe. This also explains why in the early 19th century, leftism jumped to Germany, Italy, and Poland after originating in France. Once those societies experienced population booms, this fusion is what created communism, or the eastern branch of leftism, as Marx was a Jew from the German Rhineland. If you look at a map of the modern Western left, or a subvariety which I colloquially call Weftism from the World Economic Forum.
God. Oh my fucking God. Guys, did you know that Western leftism is heavily influenced by the World Economic Forum? This is bullshit conservative propaganda. This is not real. We know this because not only have we overtly heard leftists in the United States right now talking about how much they hate the WEF and how they consider them to be way too close to capitalism, but I have actually been undercover at leftist events that haven't been recorded where they've talked about how much they hate the WEF. This is bullshit conservative propaganda. Now, I'm not arguing that the WEF is not a threat. The WEF is absolutely a threat. The WEF is a problem. But the WEF is not leftism in the United States. These are two different groups. These are two different groups. They are corporatist Malthusians. Nope. No, they're not. No, they're not. You cannot look at me with a straight face and say that Bill Gates is an anti-capitalist. That is just provably untrue based on the fact that Bill Gates has been buying up farmland all over America. This is why right-leaning audiences have no fucking clue what's going on in the world. There is no one on that stage in that photo that is an anti-capitalist. That's not real conservatives. That's made up. Well, it is true that both the radical revolutionary socialist left in the United States and the WEF Malthusians, they both want a global new world order sort of thing. They are not playing for the same team. The radical revolutionary socialists are like the Boston Red Sox. The WEF are like the New York Yankees. They both want the World Series title. They're not on the same team. They're playing the same sport. They have the same goal. They're not on the same team. They don't like each other. What that means is they're going to fight at some point. They're going to fight over who actually gets the ring at the end of the day. And all of us are stuck in the middle, and no one understands the fucking difference because people lie to massive audiences about what's going on.
Is that it almost perfectly maps onto Calvinism. Calvinism was a sect of Protestantism which believed that humans were born in sin and that most would be cast into hell, which we had no control over due to divine predestination. Calvinism was strong in the Netherlands, Scotland, Eastern England, southwestern France, the German Rhineland, Switzerland, or Berlin. After that, they populated the American Northeast.
Was literally protesting the WEF. I don't know why. Why is it so difficult for conservatives to understand that if real leftists are protesting a group, that means those leftists are not on the same team as that group. That means those leftists oppose that group. Leftists do not protest things that they support.
Who in turn populated the Pacific Northwest or English-speaking Canada. If you compare the areas that supports modern globalist ideologies like the World Economic Forum or wokeness to Calvinism, it's literally just the same map. Calvinism involves a theocratic, educated elite, much like the professors who dominate wokeism. Calvinism had a small anointed caste.
Shut the fuck up. Give him 20 years to refine his thought. Do you understand that we are not going to have a society in 20 years? He's not going to be able to do shit like this in 20 years. Are you fucking shitting me? You have learned nothing from being around this channel. You really haven't. Give him 20 years to actually articulate correct information to massive audiences on the internet? People like you are why we will lose. People like him are why we will lose. And you make fucking apologies for it. You have learned nothing by being here.
who had to fight on in a sinful world. This was so similar to the modern left's vision of the world that Thomas Sowell titled his book on the leftist view of the world, The Vision of the Anointed. The concept of castes, of the saved and sinners, also fits very closely with the modern woke creation of a racial caste system of oppression. Calvinists are also predisposed.
My God. A racial he just said the left wants to create a racial caste system of oppression. Nope, completely incorrect.
To messianism, or an attempt to build a
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Capitalism does not mean competing in the market. Capitalism is defined by the left, how they use it all the time, and we have them on video repeatedly saying this. Capitalism is defined by the left as private property ownership. Private property means your ability to own a home, your ability to own land, your ability to own an apartment that you rent out as a landlord, your ability to own intellectual property, your ability to own a private business, no matter how big or small that private business is, your parental rights over your children, and your individual liberties. It does not mean corporatism. It does not mean corrupt capitalism. It does not mean crony capitalism. This is a conservative interpretation. This is not reality on the left. This is why I said earlier, definitions matter. Just because you have a definition of a word does not mean that's how the left uses that word. That does not mean that is the left's definition of a word. So this is completely false. Unlearn this. Unlearn this immediately. Because if this is what you believe about the left, you do not understand them at all. You have never listened to them. You have not listened to them say this in their sessions, in their teachings. You can go onto my Substack, karlyn.substack.com. You will find ample clips in which they are very specifically defining capitalism as private property ownership. The left doesn't care about solving for corporatism or corrupt capitalism or crony capitalism or any of those things. That is a right-wing interpretation. That is not reality.
Utopia, or as they called it in New England, a shining city on a hill. Calvinist societies pushed for equality, standardization, and state intervention to very strict levels. It was the 17th century's equivalent to the nanny state, in which you were fined for arguing with your wife too loudly. If you're interested in this topic, check out my videos on American regional cultures. There's also a different argument that the Quakers, another British Protestant sect, founded modern leftism, which, even though I am a Pennsylvania Quaker, I partly see, but I don't think it's the underlying cause. The Quakers pushed for women's rights, full suffrage, and the abolition of slavery. However, you look at the Quaker diaspora in both England and America, where they went for libertarianism and hyper-capitalism.
No, bro. No. You don't seem to be following along. The left's definition is all that matters in this context. It does not matter if you disagree with that. Everything the left has been doing for 200 fucking years is based on that definition. Just because you do not understand that definition, because you have never listened to real leftists in your fucking life, that does not mean that the left is obligated to adhere to your definition when everything the left has been fucking doing for hundreds of years is based on the definition that I just fucking gave you, going back to the Communist Manifesto. If you do not understand your enemy, you will never defeat them. If you're going to sit there and say, I don't care what definition the left uses, they're wrong. My definition as an anonymous person on the internet is the only definition that matters. People like you are why we are losing, because you have no fucking clue what your enemy believes. You have never listened to them in your life, and when you are presented with fucking evidence that this is how they use that term, this is what they mean explicitly, you go, I don't care what they mean. I'm right. They're wrong. Go fuck yourself. If you are not willing to unlearn everything you think you know about the left, you are not going to last here on this channel, and I will not have my audience pulled down into the land of conservative fucking retardia just to placate and coddle your feelings.
Quakers pushed for classical liberalism or freedom of choice while never going through social engineering. The soft-heartedness of the left and a lot of the ideas comes from the Quakers, though, but then it disseminated to other groups who actually pushed it. Then there's the popular argument that the modern left is founded by the Jews. Again, like all of the other arguments here, there is a strong element of truth. What I will say is that none of these groups are really responsible in that the left formed as an organic whole, incorporating discrete elements into...
Hang on, we need to read this. The reason I'm pointing this out here is that people start playing loose logic. Well, someone is playing loose logic here, that's for sure. Loose logical games once informed thinking kicks in. People want to say that due to being overrepresented, the Jews created the left. Huh. Isn't that funny? We don't say the Romans are responsible for everything bad France did or that Americans are really British. We actually do kind of say that. Past a certain point, a new organic whole is created. Well, that's true enough, but that's not, doesn't actually, when you're talking about a historical development of what the left is doing, that doesn't actually apply here. Also, this theory ignores that at no point were even close to the majority of leftists were Jewish. All right. The guy who is delivering us with a historical analysis that is really flawed on a whole bunch of levels about current American leftism is saying, ignore the origins of leftism, guys. Just overlook it. It's not historically convenient for us, so we're just not going to talk about it. Don't worry about it, okay?
Its own thing. Jews have had a vastly disproportionate element in the creation of the modern left. This is especially pronounced in certain sub-regions and eras. For example, almost all of the postmodernist thinkers were Jews. Mid-century America, the rise of communism in Russia, or the Weimar era were also very disproportionately Jewish. In my opinion, Kevin MacDonald and Kurt Doolittle are the people who have made the best arguments for the Jewish element in the left. Basically, that you can trace certain parts of leftist philosophy either towards a Jewish self-interest to protect themselves from nationalist governments, which have very frequently targeted them, or that the left is a projection of certain elements of Jewish society and philosophy. The Jews have always cared a lot about social cohesion and welfare inside their own communities. The Jews also have a bent towards messianic thinking that they are on the edge of reaching utopia, and if they are morally good, God will reward them with victory or confusing the good for the truth. Jewish culture also has a idea of criticism in which...
Hang on, I got another Rumble rant from Guardianship over on Rumble. Thank you, bro. Guardianship says, Karlyn, ask him to define his own individual rights as capitalist so we can see if he's illiterate or not. Ask him to define his own... You mean the guy in the chat? Ask him to define his own individual rights as capitalist so we can see if he's illiterate or not? You mean the guy in the chat or the guy in the video? Appreciate the super chat. Thank you.
The prophets would do social criticism of the ills of society. Even though there is an element of truth, I think this argument gets pushed too far all the time. There are a couple counterpoints to also look at. The first is that the Jews are vastly disproportionate in literally everything, including the...
All right, so that person I just yelled at in the chat, can you define your own individual rights as capitalist? Because we want to check to see if you're illiterate or not.
Far right.
We'll
Jews
see.
are only 1.5% of America's population and less of Europe's. I am of British and Irish ancestry, and I have lots of hyper left-wing relatives. It seems strange to think the Jews just brainwashed most white Western women. Wouldn't it make more sense if the Jews happened to supply ideas that fed into white women's self-interests? The problem is that if you
Wouldn't it make more sense if the Frankfurt School came to Columbia University in the 30s and started their takeover of all of academia? So they started by taking over the colleges gave them the schools of education gave them the teacher training programs, that gave them the K through 12 public schools. Wouldn't it make more sense to say that the Frankfurt School, which was majority Jewish, not all, but a lot, has had a disproportional impact on the ideas propagated through the American higher education system, and subsequently, as a result, through the K through 12 public schools, and subsequently, as a result, the entire youth population in America?
factor the Jews into being the left, the equation just doesn't add up. You have too many ecosystems that had basically no Jews and yet still had the left.
That's
Look
not
at
the
China,
point.
the Spanish Civil War, Stalin purging the Jews from the
That's
Soviet Union, or
not
why
the
is Israel so
point.
conservative politically? The irony is that the Jews in politics tend to be moderate leftists,
Oh
in that the
my
people like
God.
Sam Harris, Steven Pinker, Saad Gad, Konstantin Kizin,
Sad Gad. Is he being funny there? He doesn't even know the... Oh my fucking God. Oh my God. Oh my God. We are so fucked. We are so fucked. We are so fucked. They play both sides, you idiot.
and Brett Weinstein, among others, tend to be the moderates. The raving insane people on the left are either our BIPOC brothers or white Anglos or other Europeans. If you
Actually, and this is the God's honest truth, black people on the left tend to actually be more sane than white people on the left. That's just true.
you removed all Jews from the West today, the left would just get crazier, given
No
the Jews
shit.
are a moderating force on the left. You would still have over 100 million white radical leftists. Ironically, this is proven by the left turning on the Jews recently with Palestine. This leaves the two final demographics which make up the left, which we will analyze in the next two sections independently. Those
are
being women and the
so
bureaucracy.
fucked.
Part 3, the philosophy of power.
Yeah. You guys know what the real problem is, guys? It's not Jews, it's women. Yeah, okay. I just want to point out that we have about $20 more to hit that super chat goal. If we hit that super chat goal, I promise I will watch the whole video, but we still have half an hour left of this, and I don't even know if I'm going to have time to watch the whole video at the rate that I'm yelling at it. Like,
The entirety of leftist philosophy is built on its most fundamental level by the idea of the blank slate, the noble savage, and the open view of humanity.
This is so
These three ideas
fucked.
are actually
This is
the
so
same
stupid.
thing, or that human nature is good by its natural form, and that social conditioning makes us bad.
Thank
The lesson
you.
here that we really need to learn as
I
a
hate
society is that
everything.
the seemingly nerdy argument here
I hate everything and everyone, and everything is fake, and everything is gay and retarded. Dragon Balls, thank you for being a member of the channel for 7 months. Let's get Karlyn some extra happy hour beer money. She needs some extra pumpkin brews to wet her capitalist whistle from the screaming. Yeah, true. True. Thank you.
about stuff like human nature can determine literally everything else about how you live your life. Philosophy matters a tremendous
Everything
amount
is
for
fake
everything. I
and
used to not
gay.
believe that, but I see it more and more every day, since your soul informs what you do with your life. As Steven Pinker said, the natural endpoint of the blank slate is that if human nature is naturally perfect, and how you engineer people determines everything, then totalitarianism is the immediate next logical point, given you need to perfectly engineer the perfect conditions to turn humans into saints. This idea is foundational to literally the entirety of the left. They view the human soul like a semiconductor chip that you rip apart and engineer to perfection, while it's really a garden that you have to gradually cultivate. The great irony is that literally no one with a scientific background believes these
Hey,
underlying assumptions of the
breaking
left
news.
today. We live
Breaking news. Breaking news. Yeah, welcome to the fucking channel. If you say something stupid, you're gonna get fucking yelled at. If you cry like a little bitch because you get yelled at and you have feelings about it, guess what? I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. We care about hinging into reality. We do not care about your feelings. You can go and create whatever response you want. I don't really care. If you cause problems in my chat and you put misinformation in my chat, I will block you and we will never think about you again, and we are not going to watch any response video you do to us. You want to know why? Because we don't care about your feelings being an anonymous person on the internet. We care about primary sources and fucking reality. You can re-off into the ether all you want to coddle your own fucking feelings and cope with the fact that a woman told you you were wrong on the internet, or you can put on your fucking big boy pants and actually fucking learn something for once. Breaking news from what has just slid into my DMs. Apparently, James Lindsay is working with some Zionist professor in Idaho. And that might be why we see James Lindsay having meltdowns online about anyone who questions if Winston Churchill was a hero or not in World War II, because James Lindsay is working with some Zionist professor in Idaho, and I'm working on getting receipts on that. Never let academia get in the way of you getting an actual education. Indeed. Indeed. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it.
In this strange zombie culture, probably due to aging, in which everything is based upon the assumptions of the World War II era and the one that came right after, whether or not they actually make sense on any level today. Everyone in the sciences at this point believes that human nature is at least half genetic, that genetics informs biological race, sex, and class, which are all real, that human nature is ingrained in our blood as much as it is malleable. This is even what leftists in the sciences now believe. I'm curious to see how this imbalance will be resolved over the next generation or so, either by the left.
Hey, Dragon Balls, thank you for the super chat. I can't wait to tell my Calvinist Christian dad, a pastor, that he is part of and partially responsible for the propulsion of the far woke left. Yeah, your dad's gonna love that, I'm sure. Thank you for that.
Dying out, or the left arguing that we need to use genetic engineering to create equality. I could see an ideology like that develop at the end of the 21st century for complex reasons I explain in this text wall. This is going to sound insane, so let me preface it with this. The author of Fire in the Minds of Men was a Princeton professor and a congressional librarian, so about as legit as you could get. This was also a time in which academia was overwhelmingly still left-wing, so not really a conservative bias. He also did a tremendous amount of research on this topic, studying all the founders of the modern left as individuals and seeing their life trajectories. The conclusion he came to is that the modern left came out of the 19th century German occult movement, or the Illuminati, which mixed with French revolutionary ideas. The Illuminati was a secret organization in late 18th century Bavaria. It exists upon a concept of atheism in which there are no secret underlying truths.
So according to this guy, Marx didn't influence the modern American left. Lenin didn't influence the modern American left. But you know who did influence the modern American left? The Illuminati. Yeah. Totes, bro. We have just entered the Gnostic sex cult, ladies and gentlemen. The Gnostic sex cult is alive and well. This is the bullshit that James Lindsay has been spewing on the internet for years. And this is the result. I don't care. Why do you keep talking in my chat when you have nothing valuable to say? Why do you keep... look at this asshole. My definition of capitalism is the only correct definition. I don't care what the left says. It's only my definition. Bro, you're now getting put in a timeout. That means all your chats are deleted. If you come back and you continue to whine in my chat because you don't want to hinge into reality, we will ban you from continuing to chat in. And then you can go and yell on the internet all you want, and none of us will hear you. And we'll never think about you again. And that's it. That's it. No bullshit. We know more than you. We have more sources than you. We have literally hundreds of videos of the left saying exactly the thing that you claim they're not saying. Do not try to fucking gaslight us ever.
The idea was to create a false concept of secret underlying truths so as to create an incentive to get people to push for social equality and a simpler world. A theme that keeps on popping up in the book is that the left's ultimate aim is to push for radical simplicity, to erase differentiations of sex, class, religion, and nationality to make everyone the same. Interestingly, this goes back to Pythagorean philosophy, in which the founders of the early left were obsessed with Pythagoras, who founded a cult based out of mathematical principles in 6th century Italy. Everything the left does is
Guys, Western leftists are not influenced by Marx. They're influenced by Pythagoras from 6th century Italy.
principles in 6th century Italy. Everything the left does is projection, in which the outward mask they wear is the exact opposite of the underlying reality. When the left wants diversity, what they're trying to cover for is to get everyone to cooperate as interchangeable cogs in the machine that is bureaucratic civilization. You're not supposed to find pride in your ethnicity, region, family, community, or religion. Instead, submitting to the managerial global homo, a great term I have a text wall here to explain. To provide cover for this, they push diversity, which is also a weird, truthful psychic withdrawal from said global homo. This again fits the left's strategy of causing a problem, then offering a solution to said problem, which makes the problem worse, and the cycle continues. Get rid of the police. Leftist political thugs replace said police. Remove white people's culture. Blame white people for not having culture, and then
the reason they want to get rid of the police is they believe the police are the managers of capitalism, you fucking retard.
Give them BIPOC brothers. To get back to that earlier thread, the Illuminati was relatively irrelevant and not the evil mastermind organization that conspiracy theories paint it to be. It was mostly an atheist social club for South German aristocracy and intellectuals. Ironically, the thing the Illuminati did that was the most important was die. In that, out of its collapse came the formation of these different groups that were secret societies in Central Europe, which entered a period of Darwinistic competition, out of which the left came out of. They would combine the occult with political radicalism. This may sound crazy at first, but it makes a lot of sense once you start thinking about it. In that, this was a very religious society in which all educated people knew religious philosophy. Europe was also under the rule of a genuinely oppressive ruling class, which fused the church and state. Thus, to be against the state was also to be against the church. The French Revolution was coordinated through Masonic lodges, since the Masons were explicitly anti-Catholic, and their secret organizational abilities allowed easy coordination from the government secret police.
This is true. This is our struggle. This is the struggle of the cult. This is our perpetual struggle. We are in a perpetual struggle to liberate ourselves from the oppressive forces of Retardia. From the oppressive forces of the land of Retardia, as pushed by the conservative right. The struggle is ongoing. The struggle will never end. This is our true enemy. Our true enemy is the land of Retardia. This is our biggest opposition to defeating the left. It is the land of Retardia and the aggressiveness and the seemingly unending amount of bullshit that spews from the land of Retardia on the conservative right every single day. We are the resistance to the land of Retardia. We are the only resistance that exists beyond the Grapers. It's us and the Grapers. That's it. There is no other resistance to the land of Retardia that is the conservative right and the bullshit that these people spew onto the internet to hundreds of thousands and millions of people every single day. We are the counterculture to the Retardia that has enveloped our entire way of life. And that's why they try to silence us. That's why they keep us down. That's why they pretend that I have a personality disorder that I don't have. Because this is the land of Retardia fighting back against what is obviously and clearly true. This is the land of Retardia that does not want to hinge into reality and exist in a world in which we can fight back against evil oppressive forces. Because the land of Retardia would rather continue to exist in the sphere that they've created, and they want to expel anyone from that sphere that does not adhere to their low IQ, retarded ideas. Christian says, putting you over the top, queen. Thank you, Christian. Alex says, just a random super. No hidden truth here. No hidden truth indeed, Alex. No hidden truth indeed. Guys, I need to go to the bathroom for a second. I need to go visit the little socialist room. I'm going to let this play. I'll be right back. Okay? Let me know if I miss anything. I'll be right back. I'm definitely not going to let me just put that down. You don't need to see that. I'll be right back.
For all these reasons, the idea that the left stems from these occult movements makes a lot of sense. And this is a conclusion from about a dozen different authors who have studied this topic have each independently come to. This is something serious historians agree with. However, I won't say that just because the left was founded by these occult groups, that makes it bad. Modern science is an extension of alchemy, which was largely the same thing, as you could say with Protestantism. There was a time when the Christians were a heretical, outlawed occult group. The major change was that with the Industrial Revolution, which was really the thing that gave the left its legs, turning it from a bunch of silly radicals to the world's dominating ideology, partly by making the world's population majority urban in itself. The Industrial Revolution also created strong incentives towards standardization, social engineering, and technological progress, thus playing into earlier occult beliefs about radical simplification. Hegel studied the occult very deeply, and it seeps into his entire work. He was basically trying to write history in a theological way while pulling from esoteric mysticism. Marx took Hegel's work on its head and flipped it from what was originally completely spiritual or mystic in the Hegelian.
I walk away for 2 seconds and we land at Gnosticism. I was gone for 2 seconds. And we land at Gnosticism. How utterly and completely predictable.
Hegelian tradition into completely materialistic. One of the fascinating things about leftist philosophy is that it's basically...
Why can't I hear this now? What is going on? Can you guys hear it?
The only intellectual tradition which is purely materialistic.
Why the fuck can't I hear sound? Can you guys hear sound? You hear it. I don't hear it. Huh. How weird. Okay, well, I'm gonna let it play, and I'm gonna try to fix the sound issue on my end, okay?
At least on paper, in that the leftist philosophy rejects the soul or spiritual world in toto. This is important since in a pure...
Hang on, I'm gonna just try to reload this. There's no reason I shouldn't hear this.
Logical way, while pulling from esoteric mysticism. Marx took Hegel's work on its head and flipped it from what was originally...
No, I still don't hear it. The Illuminati has blocked my sound. Can I hear other things? No, something happened to the sound. Hang on. Did I accidentally change a setting or something? What the fuck happened? Input? No. One sec, guys. Hang on. There should be no volume mixer. This really shouldn't be happening. This was working 2 seconds ago. What the fuck? Let me see if I can hear my Spotify. No, my entire sound is cut out. Hang on. Let me just turn the sound off and turn it back on again. One sec. Here, hang on. I'm back. I fixed it. The Gnostic sex cult needed me to turn my sound off and turn it back on again. All right, continue.
Completely spiritual or mystic in the Hegelian tradition into completely materialistic. One of the fascinating things about leftist philosophy is that it's basically the only intellectual tradition which is purely materialistic, at least on paper, in that the leftist philosophy rejects the soul or spiritual world in toto.
Yeah, you know what we need to do? This is actually a great idea. This is going to be like when J.R.R. Tolkien created a map of Middle-earth. We're going to create a map of the land of Retardia with a specific enumeration about where the woods is.
This is important since in a purely materialistic worldview, standards of conduct don't really exist, and the ends naturally justify the means, given moral standards aren't real. Leftist philosophy literally does not believe in a concept of truth. This sounds like a conservative conspiracy theory, but I've taken a course in gender studies and have read a bunch of books on leftist philosophy.
God.
They literally say—
he took a course in gender studies. He knows everything. He took a single course in gender studies. Goddamn. The left just doesn't believe in the truth, guys. Pinky swear, trust me, bro. That's what the problem is. They just don't believe in the truth.
They believe it in that the powerful can socially construct reality for whatever they believe. In my opinion, the reason the left has such a powerful propaganda arm, focusing on how kind they are, is that when you boil down how they see the world, that's just the underlying principle.
No.
When you give people that principle—
No, that is a conservative interpretation. That's not reality.
Almost all will reject it. In that, if you ask a normal person, do the people in power determine reality, they're going to say no. And
just so you know, just so you get a sense of the kind of audience he's cultivated, people in the comments section agree with the assertion that Nazis were communists because they were National Socialists.
because of that, the left focuses on the external trappings of their worldview, like how kind they are, not the underlying philosophic principles. In fact, you could view our entire society as the desperate attempts to avoid thinking about how stupid our underlying philosophic principles are, as we use hedonism and ideology to never think about it. In leftist philosophy, the most important thing is that you push for the revolution. There's this meme on right-wing Twitter that whenever you talk to the left on any given issue, whether climate change, the economy, racial issues, it's never about the issue. It's really about the revolution.
See, he gets some points right. It's like, yes, everything he just said is correct. So why don't you work back from there? Why don't you start with the issue is always the revolution against capitalism, which regardless of what that retard earlier in the chat said is defined as private property ownership explicitly. Why don't you start there and work your way back from there? Because if the issue is always the revolution, I promise you, if you just start there and work your way back from there, do you know what you're not going to end up running into? Fucking Gnosticism.
This is something Marx said in his own philosophy, in that in Marxism, philosophy itself is lame since philosophers weren't pushing for the revolution. The rule of life is to push for the revolution, and if a philosopher isn't doing that, he's complicit in the old evil established order. Thus, in leftist philosophy, which lacks an effective metaphysics, the way to be moral is to push for the revolution and its related social agendas. Thus, to be moral in the leftist worldview is to fervently believe whatever is strategically efficient for the left as a movement at that given time. What this results in is the constant virtue signaling and one-upsmanship you see in leftist regimes, whether Mao, Stalin, the French Revolution, or the modern West. Since there are no moral principles, they can't stop themselves anywhere or reset. It's also why they can immediately rationalize any breaking of their own moral codes. Leftism ends up in very stupid places again and again due to this mechanism.
One of the things I can never wrap my head around that it's real is that the left will have their elites pick a strategic calculation for power.
Wait. Well, nationality doesn't really have anything to do with it, but He doesn't understand why these are all overlapping issues. Just take nationality out of it, because that really has nothing to do with it. But, like, replace nationality with I don't know, like queer or something like that. Replace nationality with like fat studies or something like that. He doesn't understand why all of these are overlapping issues. And that's the problem, bro. That's the problem. Because every single one of these issues, when you extrapolate it out, goes back to capitalism. Replace this with environmental justice, climate change. All of these issues go back to the abolition of capitalism. That's what all of this is about. Put the nuclear family here. Put I don't know how people don't understand this.
Will have their elites pick a strategic calculation for power, and then the lower ranks of the elite in future generations of the left will unironically believe these strategic calculations as if they are religious dogma.
No fucking clue.
An example of that is that in the mid-20th century, the left made a very clear strategic decision to emphasize women, ethnic minorities, and gay people. And now the left treats those intersectionalities as sacred, and they have zero self-awareness that in a different timeline, they would have the Jews or the Catholics or the working classes as the demographics they would push. And if you read mid-20th century leftist authors like Saul Alinsky or Gramsci, and Yuri Bezmenov, this is just literally what they say they're doing, that they're picking certain groups to get into power, and they made the strategic decision that the working classes were no longer a demographic, which they could use to get power. And the crazy thing is that the leftist elite...
He just said that the left believes that the working classes are no longer a demographic that they can use to get power. Bro, real communists in the United States literally talk about waking up class consciousness of working people all the fucking time in almost every single presentation they do. That's what a dictatorship of the proletariat is. That's what an uprising of the proletariat is. This is what they're doing in the unions. The Revolutionary Communists of America talks about utilizing the unions, recruiting in workplaces through unions to elevate the class consciousness of workers in America.
Today completely unironically believes in these things that their elites made as strategic calculations, and there's zero self-awareness involved here that this is all a cynical ploy, and they act as if it's the Bible.
I will keep repeating this, but things that sound like conservative propaganda are things the left literally publicly says. In the leftist worldview, the ultimate aim is the seizure of power, and anything can be justified in order to reach that point. I keep seeing conservatives get their panties in a twist about the left being hypocrites. There's this whole tagline in conservative media, what if...
Bro, you literally spent the last 15 minutes getting your panties in a twist about leftists not adhering to your definitions.
The roles were reversed, or conservatives were doing what leftists do. I've just stopped caring. Not being hypocrites isn't a part of their value system, and thus they have no reason to not be hypocrites.
They're also not being hypocrites. You just don't understand their philosophy. Leftists are always completely consistent with their philosophy. What you are doing is expecting them to be consistent with conservative philosophy, which they don't agree to. Leftists are completely consistent and are not hypocritical at all when you understand what their belief system actually is.
They don't give a damn about what if the roles were reversed. They care about winning. I think the Unabomber made the best assessment of the modern left I've seen anywhere.
That is actually
in the
correct.
anonymous urban world of industrial civilization, where we are all cogs in the machine, it doesn't matter if we're richer, the soul aches at the anonymity and sense of meaninglessness, which
That's
was
not the
totally
best
alien
analysis.
to the complete enveloping constrictive social conditions of the pre-industrial village. The industrial man works at a job with a boss who doesn't doesn't care about him, is surrounded by strangers, and so regulated.
He is correct that the Unabomber did a great analysis of the left, but not the part he's reading. If you want to read the Unabomber manifesto, I completely encourage it. I actually have a 3-part series in my Inner Circle podcast on my Substack where I read the Unabomber manifesto to you. There is, and there's actually an article that I wrote too in my Woke Mind series, which is also on the Substack, with the sections of the Unabomber manifesto that are specifically his analysis of the left. It is actually an excellent analysis, but that's not the section that he's reading.
That he can't change his environment. The Unabomber called this process over-socialization, or the pushing of social pressures to the point where we lose our humanity. The left does this, trying to destroy human nature. The Christian theologian C.S.
Where the Unabomber was correct, and if he actually read the Unabomber manifesto, he would know this, is that the Unabomber actually talks about how the left co-ops social groups and social systems, and then pulls those social systems further left to use them for their own purposes. That's correct, not what he just said.
Lewis said around the time of the World Wars that the greatest crimes of the next century would be caused by men sitting behind desks wearing suits, acting out what they believed was good. He also warned of an abolition of man, or an idea that bureaucratic civilization would try to abolish human nature. This is what the left is doing, trying to remove our normal ethnic, national, or sexual identities, tribes, families, communities, social class, tradition, or anything else that makes us us or gives people meaning in life. This is what the left is trying to do, to break human nature through social engineering, driven off their mistaken belief that human nature is perfect. The Unabomber said that this sense of anonymity came from a sense of resentment at over-socialization. This means that the left is a power fantasy made by people who feel powerless. This makes sense since you can almost perfectly correlate lack of agency in real life with leftism. Bureaucrats, professors, or retail or service workers are all very left-wing. These are jobs without agency where the resentment builds up. Furthermore, the left is all about power. They want a dictatorship of the proletariat and don't make a different plan, even though it's failed dozens of times.
He literally just said less than 5 minutes ago that the left had given up on their goal to ignite class consciousness against of the working class, and now he's saying the left wants a dictatorship of the proletariat. That's the same thing. So why is he saying they don't want this anymore, they've given up on it, and then saying this is all they want, this is all they care about? He doesn't have his own ideas even consistent yet.
Given they all secretly want to be dictator. You can see that the left is all about power and agitation, since they will always pick the most aggressive strategies to get their goals. They will not be strategic and indirect to push the interest.
The left has been indirect for 100 years. You think that the left always chooses the most aggressive, overt possible way to get what they want? Bro, they've been quietly taking over the institutions for over 100 years. Most of what the left does, you never even hear about. This guy thinks that because he sees riots on the news, that's all the left does. That's the distraction, bro. That's the fucking magician's assistant that's twirling around the stage in the sparkly dress with her tits out and her ass hanging out, and she's twirling around the stage while the magician is over here doing the trick, but you're watching the magician's assistant because boobs and ass and sparkle fucking dress twirling around the stage, but the magician's doing the trick over here. This guy's saying because he's watching the magician's assistant, that's all the left is doing. When in fact, the real trick is happening over here where he's not looking.
Interests of minorities or their chosen groups. They do so in the most abrasive way possible that's just going to backfire. Every single thing they say gives them more power. Once I realized every single thing the left says is projection as well, my worldview got a lot darker, but at the same time clearer. I suddenly saw that their projections of hate, institutional power, and racism that they shove onto the right are all completely true about them. What the left says about the right is what the left is. If you learn this rule, it's going to save you a bunch of times. One of the most beautiful moments of my life is when I was on Twitter looking at a debate between a leftist woman and a conservative.
I accidentally, I think, moved the thing, but I don't think I moved it much, so whatever. Yeah, this person is so profoundly stupid. What's most disturbing, though, is that he explicitly calls himself an objectivist when he interprets the left from an exclusively conservative standpoint. I'm so disappointed in this video. I can't tell you how many people sent me this video. I had at least 5 different people who I trust and like send me this video saying, Karlyn, you have to watch this. And I'm like, okay, I'll take a look at it. And I'm like, I'm so disappointed. I'm so disappointed right now. I cannot even tell you. Let's take a look at Bot's map. Bot, we might have to put, Bot, can I put this on a t-shirt? Do you mind? Maybe we make some edits, but it looks pretty good to me. We make something like this and put it on a t-shirt. Bot, did you do this in AI or did you actually find this somewhere? Because if you did this in AI, we should absolutely put this on a t-shirt. This is pretty great. I can put this on a t-shirt. This is fucking great. We've got the Gnostic sex cult. We've got James Lindsay. We've got the Woods of Retardia. This is AI. Fucking awesome, Bot. Awesome. Excellent. I like how there's a big volcano because that means that someday the volcano is going to erupt and take all of this stuff down with it. Awesome. New t-shirt. Excellent.
Man. I was watching them go at it for a few tweets, and then the leftist woman wrote a criticism of the conservative that was incredibly beautiful because it was such an artistic and intelligent depiction of the flaws in her own argument. I would not be able to write something that poetic if I tried. And seeing the degree of the left's projection makes me believe in the human soul because there is some deep part of people that know what is inherently wrong. With the rise of the Industrial Revolution came the bureaucracy, which is the underlying driving social class behind the left. I've said before in previous videos that the left exists in the modern West to push the self-interests of the college-educated. Every single thing in the leftist worldview comes from the college-educated self-interest. They push for the abolition of the police and the replacement with college-educated social workers. They want to get rid of the military and replace them with college-educated diplomats. They pervert college-educated professors to traditional.
Every single thing he's talking about is about abolishing capitalism. Has nothing to do with the college educated. It's about abolishing capitalism.
Religions and their priests. They loathe the working classes at this point, while treating the college-educated barista as their
The left does not loathe the working classes. The left is made up of the working class.
target demographic. They push for college-educated managerial bureaucrats in either the government or private enterprise vis-a-vis the entrepreneurs or merchant class. One of the best political books I've ever read is The Leviathan and Its Enemies by Sam Francis. It explains the current ruling class of our society by talking about how, with the world wars, the managerial class gains total dominance over society. He explains everything going on as the bureaucracy's natural attempt to grow at all costs. One of the interesting facets that goes on here is the bureaucracy will pick issues that just physically can't be solved, thus allowing infinite funding for forever. If we're being blunt, the issues in Black ghetto communities, the hysteria of Karens, and the third world's poverty just won't be fixed by bureaucracies, thus allowing infinite bureaucratic bloat. He argues that the reason the left was able to gain social dominance was that since it naturally appeals to the self-interests of the bureaucracy, thus as every single institution becomes run by a bureaucracy, the left was able to gain social control of the upper brass of the military, media, academia, executive branch, educational system, state government, news, religious institutions, and anything else you could imagine. Since power was concentrated in the bureaucracies as the only way to manage an urban society with
He just described the left gaining institutional power.
that technological level, thus those who ran the bureaucracies had the power. This explains pretty cleanly how Western civilization was taken over completely by suicidal maniacs who hate the civilization itself, because the bureaucracy gets power from dismantling Western civilization. Francis often brings up the Italian thinker Gaetano Mosca, who said that the left selects for the certain class of leadership called foxes. Foxes are clever, wily, and manipulative. They are a kind of people who are good at running complex systems. However, they're bad at using physical force or doing hard things that deal with the real world. It fits into a classic historic pattern in which the empire is built by tough, strong men, but after a few generations, the emperor is an old fool or child, while the court is run by harem girls, eunuchs, and bureaucrats, since those are the kinds of people who are the best at navigating court politics, or the foxes. Then the empire deteriorates, the peasants rebel, or barbarians burn the capital down. I think this is what will happen to our society, as I've said in a dozen other videos, as we are a society run by eunuchs, harem girls, and bureaucrats driving the
We are a society run by eunuchs, harem girls, and bureaucrats. Yeah. This is not serious. This is not serious.
the nation into insanity. The left in its victory has grown
We
weak
are
and stupid.
deep
The left
in the
won so
woods
hard
of
it lost the
retardia.
ability to do
Yeah.
anything. They can't wage war, make companies, art, manage government, do law enforcement, develop new ideas. There's not a single recent left-wing author who I admire. 10 years ago, there were plenty, but the left has become decadent and stupid. One of Francis's ideas that I like the best is that you can divide the modern left into the new left and the consensus liberals. The consensus liberals are the Sam Harris, Redditor, rationalist, the science trademarked UN, graph go up, neoliberal types. I can convey their essence in a jumble of words
The real left hates neoliberals.
better than articulated, but I know that you know what I mean. They are the de facto ruling class. Meanwhile, they are in coalition with the new left. The new left is
No.
Wicca, Mother Goddess, degrowth, reparations,
Oh
your
my
truth
God.
crew. These two look as if they're in
Wrong.
opposition, one
Completely
being rational
wrong.
and the other being intuitive.
based in
The
I'm not
reality
even
is
gonna
that
bother
they've
pausing
been
it.
working
This is just
together as a
wrong.
sort of tag team, playing good cop,
No.
bad cop since the world
No.
wars. The consensus
Yes, guys. Yeah, guys. Yeah. The real radical revolutionary socialists are tag teaming with the WEF and the neoliberals. We just don't know it. We just don't know it. It's all just, it's like a triple tag team, guys. It's the socialists and the WEF, and they're all working with the neoliberals. Now, ignore the fact that the real socialists overtly denounce the WEF and the neoliberals all the fucking time. That doesn't matter. You want to know why? Because they're running cover. They're just it's a secret. It's a secret. It's a secret. And the reason that they say in public that they all hate each other is because they're trying to cover for the fact that they're all in a secret tag team alliance with each other.
Liberals pretend to be reasonable, scientific, and
And it's
a
Gnostic,
consensus,
yeah.
while the reality
Yeah.
is that they artificially stuff the bureaucracies and committees to get whatever they want. Said impersonal processes were supposedly created to bypass the negatives of human nature, while the reality is that they just enable its worst aspects. The consensus liberals use the threat of the new left to keep shuffling the social consensus leftwards. You want to avoid the complete insanity of the new left, so take this reasonable step for progress. This is salami slicing for the left to get total power. The new left is astroturfed as outsiders used to push the regime's interests, given everything the new left pushes for really demands the growth of the managerial class. It's funny how punk rock, rap, and other degenerate chaotic art forms have just become the mainstream so
Oh
easily. In
my
almost all cases, what the new
God.
left sees as progress is the breakdown of traditional social ties or individual responsibility, which is always filled by the state or management. As the society decays and collapses, the bureaucracy fills the void. Part 3, the abdication of responsibility.
says
This
4.
leads into a topic which totally deserves to be its own video, given it taps into the most deep and fundamental part of human or
almost
animal
done.
nature.
We're
a split
committed.
which
We're
goes back
almost
nearly
done.
1 billion years. That between men and women. This is literally the most taboo thing to talk about in society, which just proves the point in of itself. You know who's in power by who you're not allowed to criticize. And I frankly think a big reason rightist discourse is so
Yeah.
obsessed with the Jews is that they're scared of blaming women. We've reached a point recently in the divide between male and
The right is so obsessed with blaming Jews because they're afraid of blaming women. Do you know how many times I hear repeal the 19th every fucking day? We've trained for this. We have watched some of the stupidest socialists on the internet. We've watched some of the most dense socialism content on the internet. We can make it through 10 more minutes of this guy being a retard. Yeah. Yeah. This dummy is spouting Carl Benjamin's liberalism is communism with breaks, plus James Lindsay's Gnostic conspiracy. This kid's an idiot on several tangents. Listen, man, you can make accommodations for him being young, I guess. But it's also like, he has 600,000 subscribers. At some point, he needs to take some responsibility because this feels like a giant troll. This feels like a giant troll. Oh, Rationalist says he does not look like he's 21 in his interview, so now he really has no fucking excuse. You want to tell me someone can read all those books, but they can't do a basic goddamn fact check of their own confirmation bias? This is a troll. This is like I'm gonna feed my right-wing audience all of the talking points that they love, and they're gonna click on my video, and they're gonna watch it, and I'm gonna get all this money. This is not real. This cannot be real. Like,
and female has become a inherently political divide amongst young people, in that 3-to-1 young men are conservative and the reverse is true for young women. The question I have here is, how the hell are they supposed to start families together and have kids if they're fundamentally different religions
they're
or
not
civilizations?
supposed to.
If we told any pre-industrial society that the great political divide inside our society was men versus women, they would be in complete shock. The idea that women could push their own interests would appear insane by historic standards. For a real historic example, the Greek writer Aristophanes in the 4th century BC wrote the play Assemblywomen. It was about a society where only women voted, kicking men out of the franchise. The result of an all-female electorate was that women voted in economic communism, the end of privacy in the nuclear family. Beyond that, the women voted in sexual communism, in which there was free love, but in order to sleep with a beautiful woman, you would sleep with an ugly one first. The female senators would complain about how difficult being a senator was on the Senate floor, how cold the room was, and they had trouble forming a coherent strategy to carry out their plans. Doesn't this sound awfully familiar? It feels like the Greeks knew something profound about human nature that we've forgotten. If you give women authority due to their own biological self-interests, they will end up pushing certain policies that end up looking a lot like the modern left. Winston Churchill, when asked if he supported women's suffrage, said that if you gave women suffrage, it would become the starting point for a series of social issues that were ridiculous that would immediately be championed forever without stop. John Adams, when asked about women's suffrage, said the exact same thing, that society would devolve into pushing silly political projects for greater equality. Firstly, this happens in the industrial world, but not in previous society.
this guy literally said that the Illuminati is more influential of the modern left in America than Karl Marx. So if that's the type of leadership that I can expect from men, no, thank you. No, thank you. Like, I am so sick of men pretending that they are fucking infallible and that women just make all these stupid mistakes. And if men were really leading everything, then everything would be fine. If men were leading things, we would believe that the Illuminati is responsible for the modern American left instead of Karl Marx. That if men were leading things, then the entire explanation for all the crazy shit going on in society would be, guys, it's a mystical Gnostic sex cult. And that's what we have to fight. We have to fight the mystical Gnostic sex cult. When are we going to be able to acknowledge that there are smart men and there are stupid men? There are smart women and there are stupid women. There are men who make good leaders. There are women who make good leaders. There are men who make shitty leaders. There are women who make shitty leaders. This is not an issue of male or female. This is an issue of smart and competent and capable versus idiot and retarded. But he's hitting all the right's favorite talking points, and that's really what matters.
To anywhere the same degree due to the industrial world removing men's advantages in physical strength, and the last feminist wave came about due to women being liberated from sex being immediately associated with childbirth. The real question to ask here is what in female nature meant that an ancient Greek author could predict leftism 2,500 years in advance. An interesting thread that I need to make a video about at some point is that the ancient Greeks did have their own versions of socialism and feminism. Athens at the time of Plato or Pericles treated women like the Taliban does today. Within a century, women got legal equality with men, while Greece saw waves of communist and socialist movements. The reason America's founding fathers were so careful about mob...
Then why are all the communist thinkers that influenced the modern American left men? You want to talk about how all the Jews aren't responsible for this? Okay, let's talk about how everyone involved in the Frankfurt School was a man. Every single person in the Frankfurt School was a man. But no, women are responsible for communism? No. No. Name me one influential woman in the development of the Frankfurt School bullshit that got integrated into American universities. They were 100% men. But really, guys, we should let the men lead. The women just need to go back to the kid. We need to let the men lead.
Rule and the faults of democracy is that they studied the precedent of Greek socialism very closely. The most important difference between men and women is that men get benefit from risk and women don't. Men wage war, hunt, go on trading expeditions, while women are weighed down firstly by childbearing and are also just physically weaker. In game theory terms, this creates very different incentives. For men, it's the formation of systems in which men can excel through doing.
In his Anthropology of the Right video, he literally shows a list titled Why Nazis and Communists Are Similar. We are never watching this YouTube channel again. This person is permanently discredited in my eyes. I don't want anyone to ever send me a video from this person again. This has been incredibly painful for me. I am banishing this person off of my channel. I can't do it. This is like the Whatever podcast. We are never putting ourselves through this again. I would rather watch socialism for 22 straight hours than ever listen to this person again in my life. We have 5 more minutes.
Stuff to make themselves more attractive as mates. For women, it's to mitigate risk as much as humanly possible. This is why female voters push for welfare, the breakdown of the family, war, capitalism, and other things. In each of these cases, they're removing things that can be bad. You could have a bad husband, the military could turn against you, or your company could fail. The thing with government welfare is that no matter how you screw up, the government will still support you and your offspring. This is why there is a relatively close correlation between welfare and feminism over history. The purpose of the left is complete risk mitigation for the individual in this manner. The state does everything for you, so no matter what, you'll be fine. This explains almost all of the left, the attempt to escape responsibility. An important point that modern civilization never makes is that the human experience is largely lived through individual consciousness. Things like nations and groups form, but it's formed by the individual consciousness. And so things that that are really questions just about human life itself have important ramifications for society itself. And the left is resentful that we are born into a world of suffering where you have to actually do things to survive.
Wrong.
And thus, in a very childlike form,
False.
they just rebel against that and
False.
the idea that you have to struggle in life.
That's
There's another
not true.
fascinating divide, that the right versus left divide is very much R versus K selection. R selection is you make short-term decisions to have as many children as possible evolutionarily and just hope they survive while giving them very low investment. And K selection is high investment, long term. And R selection does better in more chaotic societies, where if you're in this bloodthirsty tribal culture, you'll just try to sleep with as many women as possible and hope they survive. While in a more industrialized, more educated culture, you need to put more investment in your children. And the left pushes things like abortion. It pushes low emphasis on getting values.
That's not why the
it
left
pushes
pushes
low
abortion.
emphasis on marriage,
Wrong.
cultural traditions, all these things that further
That's
K
not
selection,
why.
while the right is
That's
the
not
opposite.
why. None
Another
of that is
interesting
why.
element here is that we've
Wrong.
consistently found from SAW, or an acronym I invented for Studies in Ancient Wisdom, is that women are just as aggressive as men. They just put that aggression into interpersonal relationships.
my
This occurs
God.
through GSR, or gossiping, shaming, and rallying. That being female relational warfare. If you look at what the left does, they always smear their enemies and make their enemies socially unpalatable.
The
They've
right
been
does
doing
that
this
too.
to the right for decades.
The right does that
Leftism
too.
is
Are you
GSR on a
serious?
continental industrial scale. For an easy example of this, the left criticizes me for being a pseudo-intellectual, incel, autistic, egomaniacal, deranged,
Yeah, all that is
schizophrenic,
true.
broke, loser, fascist, Nazi.
all that's
None
true.
of those are true, and for many of those, the reality is the exact opposite. But that doesn't matter one whit. What matters to them is that they made me look low status and thus not worth listening to. It's the political version of a mean girl saying you look fat today. The left are the best people in the world at playing verbal games. They won in a world where everyone was so wealthy that appearing popular trounced actual survival. What Moscano said is correct, that the kinds of people in the leftist elite are the same sort of people who are cunning but not tough. They can only control the population through psychological manipulation. This is why they use schools, academia, the media, and all other types of manipulation in order to control the population from the cradle. This is why they responded to Trump with an insane bout of shaming and trying to make him look terrible. If the left is screeching at you, that's a good sign. It means they're scared. The reason women use GSR is
the
they
right
can't
is
use physical
screeching at
force. The left is a
right
fascinating
screeches all
historic
the time.
moment.
What are you
I think
talking
thousands
about?
of years from now, people will be shocked that it ever existed. I think that the left will be remembered in the far future how we look at the bizarre Christian theological conflicts which occurred around the time of the Dark Ages. Wait, people actually killed each other over what aspect of Christ's divinity existed at the very moment he was resurrected. It makes perfect sense to us now since we're stuck here, but the left's denial of reality itself inside their own worldview is just bonkers. I don't know how else to say this, but once you dig to the bottom of the left's worldview, they're just wrong. In future eras of history, we're going to learn these lessons, and they'll ask us, hey, why didn't you immediately ask the left what their view on human nature and the world was?
Donald
And when
Trump
they
has
didn't
been
give you a good
screeching
answer,
about
why
Taylor
didn't you
Swift for,
immediately
like,
call
3
them
straight
out?
days.
They would think about us, you guys were so scared of looking nerdy that you completely sold out your society to insane people. The powerful just
Oh my
don't
God.
construct reality in their image. Human nature just isn't perfectible. The state won't fix all of our issues. People just can't completely abdicate responsibility. The fact that we let Marxists take over our civilization twice, after the previous round killed a little less than 100 million people, is just insane. I've been reading Solzhenitsyn lately, and he's one of the best authors I've ever read, although it's so depressing it's hard to read. And the biggest thing I can't forgive the left for is just the sheer pettiness. Solzhenitsyn writes out how communists would starve someone for a month, leaving food in front of them without letting them eat it, torturing people like a mouse plays with a cat, enjoying the suffering, interviewing someone about a friend who was sent to the gulag, asking them about every single thing they said in their casual conversations. If you say the wrong word, you're dead. Even if you do it all right, they could kill you anyway. This is something I see with the leftists today. We choose to ignore at our own danger. We can choose to see the left for their pretty face or what's under the hood.
That's it.
The last video I
That's
wrote
it?
was the
No. No. We're not watching anymore. We're done. We're done. We have exited the land of Retardia. We are sailing away. We're on a boat over here. We were deep in the land of Retardia for a while. And now we have exited. And we're on a cruise ship. And we're going away. And we're never going back. And no one ever send me videos from that person again. It was a mistake. Mistakes were made. It's no one's fault. Mistakes were made. I'm not mad at anyone. I'm just saying, don't ever make me watch that again. All right. Well, here's the good news. That's done. Here's some more good news. I'm going to go take a break for an hour. I'm going to go get some dinner. And at 9:30 tonight, we're going to do something a little different. Not 9. Oh, half an hour. Oh, shit. I only have half an hour. It's at 9 o'clock tonight. At 9 o'clock tonight, Jennifer and I are going to be live for Disenrage. And we're going to talk about a lighter subject. We're going to talk about the creation of Satan. So, if you want something a little lighter, I'm going to be back in like 35 minutes. And we're going to talk about the creation of Satan, okay? And I just don't have anything else to say right now. I need to process my feelings about this whole experience. I love you all. I appreciate the support. Don't ever do that to me again. That was awful. I'll be back in about half an hour to talk about Satan. I appreciate you guys. See you soon.